How's it going? Dumbledore and Newt took advantage of the heavy fog and strolled down the street. They still believe it was you who sent me to New York. Newt felt helpless. You said it wasn't me? Dumbledore asked. Yes. Newt paused and said helplessly, although it is indeed you. Dumbledore glanced at him and smiled. This further confirmed Newt's conjecture. You tell me how to find the Thunderbird that was traded. You know very well that I will take it home, and I can only use the method of numb claws. Still smiling, neither admitting nor denying. Not proactive, not refusing, not responsible. The man known as the Great Dumbledore is truly a scumbag. He is still a scumbag who specializes in deceiving men. I have always felt a kinship with the great magical birds. There is a story in the family. Whenever a Dumbledore family member is in urgent need, the phoenix will come. It is said that my great-grandfather had one. Later, after he died, the phoenix came. Fly away and never come back. Dumbledore seemed to be talking about something irrelevant. Newt was not led astray by him. Please bear with me, Professor. I don't believe this is the reason why you told me Thunderbirds. Dumbledore suddenly became aware of the Watcher chasing after him again. To be honest, with Dumbledore's strength, such tracking was like a child's playhouse. He grabbed Newt and disapparated, throwing away the pursuer. Apparition can be tracked. Just like a car passing by has tire marks, so does apparition. But obviously, the Ministry of Magic's monitors were helpless when it came to Dumbledore's apparition. The monitor watched the two people disappear. He had no choice but to clench his fists angrily and turn around to leave. But he didn't notice that on the bus just 10 meters away, Dumbledore and Newt watched him leave. Tell me about your ban. Are they going to refuse to lift your ban on the grounds that I sent you to New York? Dumbledore crossed his legs and leaned on the back of the seat with his elbows. Asked. No, I have to tell you this even if you don't ask. Newt's face was solemn, not dwelling on the past. Oh. Does it look any different? Yes, I met Grimson at the Ministry of Magic. They hired him to find a boy named Credence. But as he spoke, Newt noticed that there was nothing strange about Dumbledore's face, and he felt strange. You seem to have known it for a long time. Well, it's very early. When did you know that? About 3 months ago. Dumbledore shrugged. I am getting older and my memory is a bit bad. Aren't you going to do something? Newt stared at him. Dumbledore smiled and returned the favor. Aren't you going to do something? Newt shook his head, a little confused. I don't know. He told Dumbledore what Theseus told him in the Ministry of Magic. Then he said, I'm sure I'm not, but I find that I have no reason to refute, so what should I do? Find the boy and then send him to the Ministry of Magic. I don't trust the Ministry of Magic. Newt looked at Dumbledore and suddenly his eyes lit up. Eh? I think I can send him to Hogwarts, to you. Dumbledore was speechless. What kind of unlucky boy is this? Isn't this a lie? Dumbledore comforted the eager Newt. No, Newt, I do want you to find him, but not to bring him back. In fact, I have already been there. I offered to bring him back, but he was refused. What? Have you found Credence? Newt was stunned. Dumbledore shook his head. Maybe we should call him by his real name, Aurelius Dumbledore. Dang. Dumbledore? Newt stood up in surprise, hit his head on the roof of the car, and couldn't help but let out a cry of pain. Sit down, Newt, don't be surprised. Dumbledore said with a smile, he is indeed my family. This is unbelievable. Professor, when did you get married? You have a child, and the child is living in an orphanage in New York? Newt asked, covering his head. Why does everyone think Aurelius is their son? Dumbledore shook his head and said, no, he is my brother's child, but because something happened, he was lost, and we all thought he was dead. Well, don't ask anymore. I have a brother, so there is what's all the fuss about. Credence is your nephew? That's right. Professor. Grimson is prolific in murdering people. According to statistics from the Ministry of Magic in various countries, dozens of people have died at his hands. The mission given to him by the Ministry of Magic is to prevent Grindelwald from finding Credence. For him, the easiest way is to kill him one step ahead. Newt looked at Dumbledore. Your nephew may be in danger at any time. Actually, I'm not worried about Grimson. I'm worried about Lord Grindelwald? No, I'm worried about Aurelius. Dumbledore flipped his fingers, and a delicate black card inlaid with gold appeared in his hand. Looking at the mysterious characters on the card, Newt asked, what is this? This is an address, a safe house in Paris, of a very old acquaintance of mine, enhanced with magic. Dumbledore handed the card to Newt. Newt grabbed the card and asked in confusion, Safe house? Why should I use safe house in Paris? Ah. I hope I don't need it, but sometimes things go very wrong. It's good to have somewhere to go and a cup of tea to drink. No, 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 I want to say, why should I go to Paris? Newt waved his hand repeatedly. Because Aurelius is in Paris, I hope you can find Aurelius. Bring him back? No, I hope you can protect him for a while. Me? Protect? Newt said in surprise. Professor, are you mistaken? You should go to Theseus. I am a magical animal scholar, not a bodyguard. Because I believe you. Dumbledore looked at him, seemingly sincerely. But the reason why Newt doesn't believe it is just believe it. But I haven't lifted the ban. I can't leave the country, otherwise I will be thrown into Azkaban. The car keys are thrown away. Dumbledore looked at him with a smile. Do you know why I admire you? What? Newt was surprised. He was actually very introverted and had low self-esteem. Since no one paid attention to magical animals, he, a magical zoologist, was not that valuable. There is also a benchmark brother who is in line with the universal view. But the man in front of him, who was called the Great Dumbledore, said he admired himself. I admire you more among the people I know. Dumbledore looked at him with a smile. You don't crave power, popularity and fame, you just want things as they should be, and for this you will do whatever it takes. That's very good, but Dumbledore, please forgive me for asking a question. Can't you go? You know your nephew may be in danger, but you don't protect him, and even if you let me go, it's not to bring him back. Excuse me, I can't understand. Newt asked eagerly. Dumbledore shook his head and smiled bitterly. You all think that I am omnipotent. He patted Newt on the shoulder seriously. Believe me, Newt, I am not omnipotent, and in this matter, you are more professional than me. A lot. Are you serious? Okay, I don't blame you. Given your situation, I would probably refuse. Okay, Newt, I wish you a good night. Dumbledore took the card out of Newt's hand and stood up to leave. What? No, wait. Newt quickly chased after him. But how could he catch up to Dumbledore? Oh, don't be like this. Newt scratched his already messy hair in distress, but unexpectedly found Dumbledore's glove holding a card floating at the door. Newt has already understood. Play hard to get. It's an old trick, but he falls for it every time. Smiling to himself, he let Glove stuff the card into his pocket, patted it, and gave him a thumbs up. Dumbledore. Newt couldn't help but laugh, feeling really helpless towards the professor. On the streets of Paris, France. Empty and sparse. Due to the time difference, it was dark in London and the lights were on, but it was dusk in Paris. Grindelwald and the costumed wizards arrived here. For 3 months, they searched New York and Europe. Aurelius did not hide his whereabouts, but instead visited many senior officials of the Ministry of Magic using Dumbledore's surname. In the magical world, which has a small population, the connection between nobles and purebloods is even closer. I couldn't find it before because the name didn't match the person. But as a large number of Umbrella elites returned to Europe and compared photos, Aurelius's identity naturally emerged. This is why they had to waste more than 2 months in New York, but it only took them more than 10 days to locate Aurelius in Europe. Grindelwald did not come directly. Credence's true identity gave him some hesitation. Dumbledore. This surname made him alert to the extreme. He suddenly began to reflect on that prophecy, the prophecy about Aurelius. He suddenly discovered that the street in the prophecy seemed strikingly similar to the street he was walking through. That battle happened here. Grindelwald was shocked, and there was an unpleasant feeling lingering in his heart. Before, he felt that Aurelius must belong to him, so of course the figure fighting Aurelius was regarded by him as Dumbledore who he could not take action against. But now, Aurelius's true identity is that he belongs to the Dumbledore family. Would one Dumbledore help him kill another Dumbledore? So, that's me. Grindelwald looked gloomy. There seem to be 2 little people quarreling crazily in my heart. Grindelwald's sudden stop made several core members of the Umbrella Party who were following him a little puzzled. But as Grindelwald's most loyal believer, Vita gently shook her head at the others. She knew that Grindelwald was thinking about big things, and signaled them not to interrupt and continue to carry out the operation. Abernethy and Crow, who had always looked down upon him, brought an ancient hearse to a slow stop in front of a gorgeous house. Not long after, 2 green lights flashed in the room, and 2 coffins were carried out, loaded into the hearse and left. During this period, Grindelwald didn't even blink. They were just 2 muggles, not enough to attract his attention. He even wanted to know what the truth of the prophecy was. That was about how he was going to deal with Clay, Aurelius. The dove occupied the magpie's nest and walked into the gorgeous room, Grindelwald 10 shots. This struck his followers as very strange. Because these actions were finalized by Grindelwald, they now need orders for the next step. And this order and instruction can only be done by Grindelwald. After thinking again and again, Grindelwald felt that he still had to fight for it, even if his hopes were greatly reduced by the surname Dumbledore. After a thorough cleaning, this place will be very comfortable. Grindelwald paced the room with his hands behind his back, and then said to a Wiccan, "Send my greetings to Aurelius Dumbledore. I want to talk to him." "With all due respect, sir, why should a young boy be so solemn? Just catch him." It was an East Asian man with a long beard, and his conspicuous bare half of his head was very conspicuous. "Mr. Sotero, put aside your arrogance. We are coming together for the great benefit. We must fight for all the power we can to face our biggest obstacle." Grindelwald has always been self-centered, but he is very concerned about himself. This Eastern wizard was quite polite. "Albus Dumbledore? For some reasons, I can't take action against him. Of course, he can't take action against me. Credence, or Aurelius, he is our support to kill Dumbledore." Green. DeVoe explained. "I have heard of Dumbledore a little bit. More than a year ago, you abandoned your family business and went to the Magnesium country. You said you were looking for the power to destroy Dumbledore. Are you just like these 10 young boys?" Grindelwald became angry when he thought about this. "No, at that time, I placed my hope on the Obscurus. As long as I was given a little time, I could activate its powerful power to destroy Dumbledore. Unfortunately, just when I was about to visit, those damn arrogant people in the Magnesium Kingdom Luo ruined everything, and their curse tore Obscurus into pieces." Grindelwald did not mind telling his failures at all. He firmly believed that no one could succeed forever, and this was not the first time he had tasted it. Failure tastes like a fox. Vita wisely brought a skull-shaped snuff pipe forward. Grindelwald took a deep breath, and the 2 dark eyes of the skeleton were burning. For the greater good, 1898. It is not only the core idea of the Witchcraft Party, but also the ideal that Grindelwald adheres to throughout his life. Call thick smoke and dust billowed, and a scene he experienced 9 months ago actually appeared inside. The devastating Obscurus ravaged the entire New York City, but was eventually killed by the combined efforts of dozens of Aurors. Put down the snuff bottle and watch the scene replaying and dissolving. Originally, we had 2 choices, but with the death of the last remaining Obscurial, we only have 1 choice left. Because of one name, Credence, the whole world is undercurrent. Countries don't know who Credence is or what kind of magic he has. But they only need to know that Grindelwald is looking for him at all costs, so they must stop him at all costs. Aurelius, who had been in seclusion for several days, did not know that the world had become chaotic because of him. He was gathering energy to start building his last rune. The manifestation of the soul at this time has greatly changed. The rhombus-shaped black crystal has an obsidian-like luster. The interior is hollow, with a black and red phoenix hovering inside. As the runes trembled, the phoenix's loud and crisp cry showed its infinite joy. "Blasting, the construction is completed. It's done," Aurelius laughed. Building runes is an extremely important part of the summoner system. And because of its irreversible characteristics, building runes must be done carefully. Very smooth. This is to be expected. Building runes is important and you are afraid of being disturbed, but if you take confidentiality measures so that no one knows that you are building runes, then the risk will be greatly reduced. The manifestation of the soul gradually dissolved, and Aurelius only felt refreshed. "Aurelius, are you done?" Nagini saw Aurelius pushing the door open, and she came forward in surprise. "Thank you, my dear, thank you for your protection." Aurelius smiled. "I feel great, like never before." "Meow. Meow." The huge furry head came up and kept touching Aurelius's shoulder with its head. And me. Zuowu was dissatisfied that Aurelius only talked to Nagini as soon as he came out, eager to show off his achievements. "Of course, and you. Thank you, big guy." Aurelius rubbed his big cat head. It was extremely difficult for a big man who couldn't stay any longer to stay with Nagini in this small guest room. "Aurelius, there is something I want to tell you," Nagini said with a solemn expression. "Oh? Judging from your expression, this doesn't seem to be a good thing." Aurelius stopped scratching my chin and straightened up. "That mermaid princess hasn't written for 10 days. Nagini said, "This is very wrong. Our lobbying in France is not going well. She writes to ask questions almost every 3 days. She even proposed more than a month ago." Give up lobbying France for the time being and hope we can go to other Ministry of Magic. Nagini took out all the previous letters with Tina Sebastian. I read all the letters and compared them back and forth. Her patience was wearing away, and the emotions reflected in the letters were getting more and more irritable, but, after you went into seclusion, she suddenly lost news. Aurelius squinted his eyes. There was indeed something wrong with this and it was very unreasonable. But it did not exceed Aurelius's expectations. He said, "It seems that she can no longer control it." "You mean? She has already started a plan to take back the siren?" 80%, and I would almost say she failed. Nagini nodded. "It makes sense. If she successfully recaptures the siren and controls the siren, she will definitely send a letter, and she will urgently need support from other Ministry of Magic, but she does not. It's just that." Nagini was a little confused. "She doesn't have any allies. Why is she waiting?" Nagini, things sometimes go very wrong. We can foresee some things happening, and we can even calculate them accurately through some means, but human will cannot be calculated accurately. Aurelius said with emotion. "Is this what man's calculation is not as good as God's calculation?" Nagini said, a strange Chinese accent. This is what Aurelius said before, and the attentive Nagi temple remembered it. "That's right," Aurelius nodded. "Actually, I had this question before. Tina Sebastian is only a mermaid hybrid. Why would those sirens be loyal to her? She is neither the maker of the contract, let alone a controller. They are both intelligent creatures, so why can she control the sirens? Arts. You should have noticed that she is not very clever in terms of wisdom or methods. Her only reliance before was that she only knew the mermaid language through the sirens. Of course, profit can be made from the information gap, but this is dozens or even tens of thousands. Hundreds of years. I don't think the Ministry of Magic of various countries who want to seize the sirens would be so confident that a person who will definitely have hatred towards them will assume such an important position. It's a bit strange. Maybe she was the only one a few decades ago, but now that decades have passed, the people in the Siren Council have no other preparations." Nagini followed Aurelius's thoughts and quickly problem found. "So, our partner is not that honest." "Of course, neither are we, so it's even." Aurelius smiled and sat leisurely on the sofa, stroking the cat with his left hand and stroking the cat with his right hand. He took the teacup from Nagini. "Then what do you think she is hiding?" Nagini asked curiously. Aurelius shook his head. "I'm not a god, nor am I a roundworm in her belly. How can I know what she kept and what she thought?" "Then, we just pretend we don't know?" Nagini pointed at the pile of letters and asked. "Isn't it good? We have more time to study and solve your blood curse problem." Aurelius looked at her with a smile. "Aurelius, isn't it a bit not trustworthy?" "Haha, don't think about it, Nagini. Our transaction is just to help them meet with the senior officials of the Ministry of Magic. Everything else has nothing to do with us. It's because she didn't write to tell us the next target. It's none of our business. This is her problem and has nothing to do with us. Is it a transaction and we still have to rush to save her?" Aurelius laughed. Nagini was right when she thought about it. They had been working hard to help Sebastian complete the deal, and no matter what, they couldn't blame them for being dishonest. This is Europe, the West, where the spirit of contract is strongest. The transaction here is just a transaction, there is no friendship at all. As long as the contract does not stipulate it, it is not their obligation to perform as partners. Then shall we continue to live in Paris, or shall we leave? Well, let's stay in Paris for the time being, but we can't stay in the hotel anymore. The expenses for 3 months are not small. The funds Sebastian gave us for activities are running out, right? There's about a third left. Buy a house and we will settle in Paris temporarily. I also want to visit a legendary wizard to study the lack of original information on the blood curse. Maybe he will know." "Legendary wizard? Who is it?" "Nicholas Flamel." "Nicholas Flamenco?" Nagini asked in surprise. "Are you talking about the Nicoleme I think of?" "If you were thinking of the famous alchemist of the 14th century, the legendary wizard who created the Philosopher's Stone, then yes." Aurelius nodded. "No way? People from the 14th century are still alive?" Nagini couldn't believe it. "I always thought it was a legend. He really made the elixir of life? Used the magic stone?" Aurelius smiled and said, "Wizards have a long lifespan. If there are no accidents, I can live for at least more than 100 years, not to mention a legendary wizard who makes magic stones and refines the elixir of immortality. I know magic is magical, but I didn't expect it to be so magical. Do you know Nicolema?" Nagini asked with emotion. "No, I haven't met Nicolema, but I do know Albus Dumbledore, and we have a good relationship." I will write to him and ask him to help introduce. Before he could finish his words, he just said something else. Dong dong dong. Aurelius narrowed his eyes, glanced at the door, then turned to look at Nagini, casting a questioning look. Nagini shook her head, indicating that she didn't know who it was. Aurelius's eyes immediately turned into pitch black, with little sparks flashing in his eyeballs. As Obscurus, he has no eyes or ears, but has special sensory abilities. A door is no obstacle at all. A man dressed in black stood outside the door. Really all in black. Totally black inside and out. But the mysterious geometric mark on his collar revealed his identity, a follower of Grindelwald, the witch-hunting party. The laws of the Ministry of Magic are very strange. Sometimes they feel very strict, and sometimes they feel very outrageous. Grindelwald's crimes are known to the world, but these followers of Grindelwald wear the mark and walk on the street with arrogance. The reason is that there is no evidence that they committed a crime. This situation has not happened once or twice, and it will not be the last time for the Wu Kui party. At the end of the period of terror created by the Dark Lord Voldemort decades later, a large number of Death Eaters were released due to lack of evidence. Quite polite. Aurelius smiled and motioned for Nagini to enter the room first. Nagini saw Aurelius's appearance, understood what he meant, and entered the room with the big cat Zowu. Void raised his hand and waved, and the door opened. The black man was about to speak out, but found that there was no one in front of him. He looked up and saw Aurelius with his legs crossed and a teacup in his hand, giving him a distant salute. Old Black's face darkened. He felt that Grindelwald was indeed the only choice to defeat Dumbledore. Inscrutable. Of course Aurelius couldn't see the dark look on Lao Hei's face, and he didn't care either. Come in, sir, Aurelius said. Lao Hei walked in and took out an exquisite greeting card from his arms. It was a true greeting card. Aurelius was dazzled by the greeting card with strong national style. When did Lao get this hobby? I heard that you love Chinese culture. Mr. Grindelwald specially prepared a greeting note for you. He hopes to have a chat with you. Lao Hei does not have a RB that is comparable to the postgraduate entrance examination level. Instead, he cherishes his words like gold and has a humble and polite attitude. Aurelius even noticed that Lao Hei held the greeting card in both hands and handed it over. Although he could see that Lao Hei was a little awkward, he still tried his best to maintain this weird etiquette. As soon as Aurelius raised his hand, the greeting card escaped from Lao Hei's palm and slowly floated in front of Aurelius. No contact, open it by yourself, and lines of beautiful English are revealed. Aurelius didn't expect that such a thing could happen, but Aurelius didn't expect that there would be square Chinese characters in the invitation. That's pretty much it. How can we expect Grindelwald to really cultivate the rights of Joe? After taking a few glances, I found that the content was simple and straightforward. Grindelwald hoped that they could talk face to face and promised that it would be just him. He even promised not to carry a wand to relieve Aurelius's concerns. I'm interested. Aurelius put away the greeting card and looked at the old black man. Please tell Mr. Grindelwald that since he was polite first, I will not be rude. I will be waiting for him in 3 days. Deja, may not be here, but I think he should be able to find me. Lao Hei breathed a sigh of relief and nodded. I will tell you the truth. He didn't even know his name, so when old Hei saw Aurelius agreed, he immediately left. This is really interesting. Grindelwald has changed a lot after he came out of prison. Could it be that the prison of the Magical Congress of Magnesia can also be reformed through labor? Are you really planning to see Grindelwald? Nagini came out of the room. I still want to see you. I've sent you all the greeting cards. If you don't see me, it wouldn't be appropriate. Aurelius Haishin handed it to Nagini. But Nagini knew how scary Grindelwald was, and she was very worried. It's nothing, he can't keep me. Aurelius was confident. If it were before, he might not be so confident. But now, he is completely different. Being able to use the power of the Phoenix to apparate, the sky is vast, and as long as he is not defeated, no one can stop him. Nagini didn't know where Aurelius' confidence came from, but she was used to believing that Aurelius's confidence as if everything was under control made her a little lost. Aurelius felt a little irritable in his suitcase, which was a reaction to his pre-programmed magic. Strange. What day is it today? Why did everything come to me as soon as I came out of seclusion? Aurelius muttered and waved his hand to summon the suitcase. The suitcase vibrated open and a double-sided mirror popped out. Is that the witch you mentioned? A natural legilimens? Nagini asked curiously. Aurelius nodded and connected with Henny. Merlin's socks. Thank God, you finally got in touch. Helmi looked eager. Have you contacted me? Of course, I've been looking for you for almost a week, Henny said happily, patting her heart. Don't worry. Tell me, what are you looking for me for? Is there something going on over there in Magnesia? Jane asked after Aurelius comforted Henny. Something happened. Something big happened. Henny took a deep breath and spoke in her unique accent. I heard from Tina that Grindelwald has been looking for people since he escaped from prison, a large number of Wiccan party members. Entering New York, they almost turned New York upside down. The news from the Magic Congress is that he is looking for you, and you are in danger now. Aurelius asked. Is there any more? Queenie pursed her lips and said, I saw in Tina's memory that the Ministry of Magic sent Special Envoy Arnold Guzman to the British Ministry of Magic to discuss how to thwart Grindelwald's plan. And my sister was sent to Europe to find you. Oh. This is interesting. Aurelius raised his eyebrows. Grindelwald is looking for me. The Magical Congress is looking for me. And according to your wishes, the British Ministry of Magic is also looking for me. Suddenly from an article the worthless absconding and smuggling wizard has become the center of attention, and I am really not used to it. I'm not kidding. My sister has been away from home for almost a week. She is in Paris. You are not in Paris, are you? Queenie suddenly realized something and asked. Yes, I'm in Paris. Queenie opened her mouth, not knowing what to say. Hey. It's Mr. Aurelius. Hello, Mr. Aurelius, we meet again. It's unbelievable that you were actually a wizard. Jacob's figure broke into the double-sided mirror, and he recognized it at a glance. He saw Aurelius in the mirror and greeted him warmly. But Aurelius immediately noticed that something seemed wrong with Jacob. He looked distracted, flushed, and had an overly cheerful expression on his face, as if he was high. Hello, Mr. Kowalski. Queenie. Maybe we need to talk about casting a charm spell on a no major. Do you plan to learn from your sister and change from this boring job? Aurelius said. Oh. What? What spell? Jacob smiled naively, his eyes only stayed on Queenie, extremely obsessed. Well. I'm sorry, Aurelius, I just remembered that we have to go out. Goodbye. Queenie panicked. The excuse she made was poor. Aurelius didn't stop her either. He just felt a little emotional. He didn't expect that the plot had changed so much. Queenie still had to cast a spell on Jacob to maintain their relationship that was not accepted by the world. Queenie knew very well how serious the consequences would be if she was discovered. Her sister Tina lost her position as an Auror because of casting a spell on a no mage, and fell all the way to the wand management department. If it hadn't been for what happened later, she would have been destined to spend her whole life in that boring position. Tina was lucky and escaped. Not only was her official reinstated, but she also made many meritorious deeds during this period. There are even rumors in the Magic Congress. This mission to find Credence is the ultimate test. Once she finds Credence, she can replace the betrayed Abernathy and Graves and become the first woman in the Magic Congress, as also the youngest female head of the Department of Magical Security. But does Queenie have such luck? I don't know, but under this uncertainty, Queenie still did it. Women in love are blind. For the love in their hearts, they can selectively ignore all risks. Until now, this has been an unsolved mystery in Aurelius's heart. Why did a beautiful witch fall in love with a fat no-mage man? Love of beauty, talent, and money are all understandable, but in Aurelius's senses, none of them seem to be able to describe Mr. Jacob. It couldn't be because Jacob was Queenie's first no-mage man, right? You can't do it, can you? That witch cast a love spell on an ordinary person? Nagini said with some confusion when the call ended. Yes, a girl who is carried away by love. Aurelius shook his head. In the Magnesium Kingdom, not only casting spells on muggles, but even being friends and interacting with them are strictly prohibited. This is really harsh, Nagini said. They went from the Sirens to Portugal and then to France. Nagini also saw a lot of things in the magical world. She knew the wizard's desire to hide. Although she was doing everything possible to avoid being discovered by the muggles, she did not as nervous as Magnesia. Due to historical reasons. Then why don't they immigrate to other countries? Other countries don't have such regulations, right? Nagini was puzzled. Good question. Then ask her when you have the opportunity to meet her in. Aurelius didn't want to say anything more about Queenie's emotional issues. These are not important. Let's go. Go see where suitable houses are available. Good. Taking the suitcase, Zuowu got in obediently, and Aurelius took Nagini out. The Wizard's Hotel they stayed in was in the Hidden Place, the largest commercial street in France's magical world. To be honest, the name is straightforward enough, but this is its unique feature. The French Ministry of Magic was only established in 1790, when Nicolema was over 400 years old. Unlike the United Kingdom and the Magnesium, the French Ministry of Magic was established due to the famous Louis XVI-related events. It can be said to be the Ministry of Magic closest to Muggles. Even their slogan is, liberty, equality, fraternity. The hiding place is not hidden underground like Wally's Cave, nor is it a street like Diagon Alley. If I had to describe it, it looks a lot like Station 9. They enter and exit through a statue, and through the statue they emerge on the main street of the hiding place. There is no doubt that this is achieved through magic, but what kind of magic it is, Aurelius does not know, but he is very interested. This must be a kind of teleportation magic. It is impossible to hide an entire station in a pillar, nor to hide an entire commercial district in a statue. It's not that it can't be done, but it doesn't match the facts. Hogwarts Express is about to leave the station, and there is more than one way to end from the hiding place. These are not the characteristics of the space expanded by the traceless stretching spell. To be honest, the experience of teleportation magic is hundreds of thousands of times better than apparition, flow powder, and portkey. Silently, one step at a time, this is the teleportation that Aurelius imagined. The hiding place is very lively, with people coming and going. It's not a special festival. It can be said that it is crowded every day, 365 days a year. The French magic world is at the top of the list. Although the sun has already set, hasn't it not set yet? As the leader in the global magic world, it has a large wizarding population gathered here. Conservative estimates suggest that there are at least 300,000 wizards living in the French magical world, accounting for 1/10 of the total number of wizards in the world. 300,000, even in the previous life, it was considered a large county town. Travelers and traders who come here are bustling with people. Even if the sun is shining brightly, it only makes the hiding place even hotter. It's still noon, and there are more people here at night. Nagini and Aurelius didn't walk for a long time before they were covered in sweat. Although it is already September, the sun is still very poisonous. Apparition is disabled in a hidden place, and there is no anti-apparition magic. It is unrealistic to install anti-apparition in the entire shopping street, but no serious person wants to let the Aurors from the Ministry of Magic come to their door. They must leave or go to a dedicated location before they can disapparate. The only place in the hideout where apparition is allowed is in the central square. There are several moving statues and fountains in the middle of the square. There are 5 roads surrounding the square, and the roads are lined with a variety of shops. On the north side of the square, there is a notice board. Each notice flies over and sticks to itself. The words on the notice can also move, making it look like the electronic billboards of later generations. Is there any? After reading the notice for a while, Aurelius didn't find any news about the house being sold, so he turned to Nagini and asked. No, it seems that I have to buy a house on a Muggle street, Aurelius said a little helplessly. His ideal plan is to buy a house in a hidden place. The hiding place is centered on the central square, and 5 paths divide the hiding place into 6 radiating areas. There are shops on both sides of the road, but the gap between the 2 streets is a residential area. Many wizards live in hiding places. These houses in residential areas are what Aurelius wants. Here, he can decorate his houses with magic and do various magic experiments. It will be much more convenient. It would be very troublesome in the Muggle community. If there was any magic experiment accident, Aurors would come to visit. Although Aurelius felt that he would most likely be treated like Grindelwald in the future, he did not go directly to the wanted criminals. Just as the two were discussing purchasing a house in a Muggle community, at the entrance to the hiding place, Tina Goldstein, wearing a knitted hat and coat, secretly tapped the Muggle policeman who was resting in front of the statue with her wand. Confusion, confusion. The Muggle policeman shuddered and turned a blind eye to Tina. The bronze statue behind her lifted up her skirt. Tina lowered her body and got directly into the base of the statue. She arrived in Paris. It took Grindelwald and a large number of wizards to search for 3 months before he found Aurelius Tina in just a few days. Is Tina too good, or are the Wu Kui party a bunch of losers? Neither is. Tina Goldstein has an advantage that Grindelwald cannot match. She can openly borrow resources from the Ministry of Magic of various countries. Again, Aurelius has never hidden his whereabouts, but can be said to be high profile. Grindelwald couldn't let his subordinates get a photo of Aurelius. What they had been looking for was credence. It was the opposite direction. It would be strange if they could find it. And since Tina has met Aurelius in person and knows that he has changed his name, how can it be difficult to find him? After receiving the news from the French Ministry of Magic, Tina went straight to the hotel where Aurelius was staying. Tina, who was anxious, ignored Aurelius and Nagini, who were walking side by side just 10 meters away from her. Passing by. Huh? Aurelius suddenly stopped. What's wrong? It came very quickly. Aurelius looked at Tina, who was hurriedly walking forward with a smile in his eyes. You know? Tina Goldstein. Nagini glanced curiously. That Queenie's sister? Magnesium ore? Right. Want to see her? No, let's go. Now is not the time. Aurelius does not believe in these Western politicians at all. Politicians in the magical world are also of the same origin, and they are all the same. Tina Goldstein, despite being a popular female auror, is actually a reckless person who will only be used as a knife. Better not to see it than to see it. Aurelius, who quickly forgot about Tina, took Nagini straight to the 13th arrondissement of Paris. The 13th arrondissement of Paris is located in the southeast of Paris and is the most sparsely populated area in Paris. The reason is because of the number 13. Most Westerners dislike the number 13. But Aurelius didn't care about this, because he was Chinese at heart. Not only did he not think 13 was a bad number, he actually liked it a little bit. Many people in China prefer this number, and there have been many combinations named 13 since ancient times. For example, the 13 Taibao, 13 Mo, 13 Classics, etc. all like to make a set of 13. In the previous life of Paris, the 13th arrondissement was also the borough with the most Asians in Paris. Even Mr. Wu spent most of his time here when he was studying in France. Aurelius chose this place because, firstly, there were few people and the house prices were cheap, and secondly, there were already many Chinese here. He instinctively chose this place. The real estate agents were surprised when they heard his choice. These days, only white people from the 13th arrondissement sell houses, but it is rare to see someone who specializes in selling houses in the 13th arrondissement. Real estate agents have a long history. They existed during the spring and autumn period and the Warring States period. In order to save trouble, Aurelius directly found a real estate agent. They pretended to be a Chinese couple on their honeymoon and bought real estate in Paris because they loved Paris. After wandering around for an afternoon, Aurelius finally saw a house that he was quite satisfied with. The single-family villa has an indoor area of about 500 square meters, a typical French style, with a garden, an underground warehouse and a small swimming pool. The owner of the villa is a fat middle-aged man. He is a factory owner. He heard that his business has not been doing well recently and he needs money for turnover, so he sold this property where he does not live regularly. Not only does it bring back funds, it also saves a lot of property taxes and annual property vacancy taxes. The old man was easy to talk to, and it didn't take long for the terms to be negotiated. Aurelius chose to settle in gold, and the owner of the house almost immediately pulled him over to transfer the ownership. In this way, Aurelius bought his first real estate in the world. He didn't use magic to fool people. The business was fair, and the price was right. Aurelius was not that evil-doing person. Aurelius didn't bother to occupy the magpie's nest and then kill the owner. No one is included, right? Mr. Grindelwald. Okay, we can move in directly. Aurelius walked around his villa with satisfaction, and he had already begun to think about how to modify it. What's a pity is that he doesn't understand the cheat and loyalty charm. Otherwise he could have transformed this place into his own safe house. Seeing Aurelius raise his wand to cover the entire villa, Nagini picked up the restless suitcase and released the fussy Zuowu inside. The Muggle expelling curse is a very useful spell. It can be regarded as a low-profile version of the red bold loyalty curse. It can make all nearby Muggles ignore everything here. Meow. Crash. Looking at Zuowu diving into the swimming pool to have fun, Aurelius suddenly felt that besides looking like a cat, this guy had the personality of a husky. It's really awesome. With a murmur, Aurelius released a cleanser to purify the muddy water of the pond. He didn't want Zuowu to bring this dirty swimming pool water into the villa. Although the villa is well decorated and has been taken care of by the previous owner from time to time, since it is not a permanent resident, it still needs a good cleaning. For wizards, cleaning is just a matter of cleaning things up. By 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, the entire villa was completely new. I had a barbecue dinner at my new home to fill up the atmosphere. Aurelius began to renovate the house. The first and foremost, of course, are the various magic traps. Both Li Huo and Avada were equipped. This was the spell that Aurelius originally transformed into a magic trap, and he used it quite skillfully. The second is protection. The iron armor protection and the iron armor spell covering almost every inch of the wall make the entire villa comparable to a military fortress. With Aurelius's magic level, these armor spells would not be a big problem against an RPG. With protection and counterattack traps, the initial transformation is over. Aurelius was not afraid of using Avada Kedavra frequently, and he was not even afraid of being discovered. Just discover it if you find it. This is not the UK. There is no such thing as an unforgivable curse. Even if there is one, it does not constitute a crime as long as it is not used directly on people. This is a typical legal loophole, but it is also capable. Who makes others unable to turn the death curse into a magic trap? 3 days later. Grindelwald leaned on the sofa, his strange-colored eyes showing a hint of doubt. He actually didn't understand these ancient etiquette. He subconsciously looked at the old wizard who was sitting cross-legged and meditating. Mr. Soshoro, is this also your etiquette? The old wizard opened his eyes, with a chrysanthemum-like smile on his wrinkled face. I didn't expect this boy to be quite polite. This is the etiquette for welcoming distinguished guests. I will invite you every day for 7 days. Grindelwald shook his head. What a complicated etiquette. Sir, is it possible that he is stalling for time to prepare to escape? Crow suddenly said. Grindelwald was a little hesitant, and to be honest, he was also doubtful. Aurelius, it was strange for a child who grew up in a New York orphanage to talk about Chinese etiquette. But in the end, he rejected the idea. No, I understand him. Aurelius had indirectly teased him, and of course he was annoyed at the time, but he was not a man easily swayed by his emotions. During the 6 months in prison, Grindelwald thought a lot. He carefully sorted out everything about himself, including his plans for the Umbrella Party and his greater interests. Also included is an analysis of Aurelius as a person. He felt that they were the same person, and he even felt that Aurelius was more similar to his former best friend Dumbledore. Of course, the most important thing is that he is confident that Aurelius cannot run away. This is Europe, his natural base. If this allows Aurelius to run away, Grindelwald has no face, right? Dover. The sea breeze carried the salty and wet breath and rolled up Newt's already sharp hair. He walked toward the cliff with his head lowered, carrying the suitcase he never left. On the snow-white cliff, an ugly figure is holding a wooden stick in hand, seemingly waiting there early. A shabby black robe was blown around by the sea breeze, and a rusty iron bucket was thrown carelessly in front of him. You are late. We will set off in 1 minute. The man in black robe grinned. 5,000 galleons. Newt said anxiously. No, we agreed on 30 galleons. The man in black grinned his mouth wide, revealing his yellow teeth, and gave a weird laugh. 30 to go to France, and the other 20 is to make me never mention that I saw Newt's commander illegally leave the country. The price of fame. Brother. Newt smiled bitterly. He was blackmailed. He doesn't have any good ideas. He is a knifeman and I am a fish, so let's cut him. Grabbing a handful of galleons, Newt handed it to him. After checking the weight, the man in black robe was satisfied and stuffed the galleons into his belt. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. The iron bucket on the ground suddenly vibrated, like the drum of a drum washing machine spinning rapidly. 3, 2, Newt took a deep breath, stepped in, and his whole body was sucked away. The next moment, Newt appeared on the streets of Paris from the white cliffs of Dover, England. After shaking his body, Newt recovered from his dizziness. The taste of door keys is not very pleasant, especially the inferior door keys made by these smugglers. After calming down, Newt hurried towards the hiding place. This was his first time in Paris, but he had done his homework. He is not traveling, but there may be conflicts or even dangers, so of course he must be well prepared. Writing down a rough map is also one of the important preparations. Like Tina, the two really have a good connection. The poor Muggle policeman had been cast 2 confusion spells in 1 day, and he would be confused for the next few days. Africa Hotel. Africa Hotel, Newt muttered, searching for the hidden place. This is where Aurelius and Nagini lived. Found it. Newt's eyes lit up and he walked over quickly. Hello, sir. What can I do for you? The hotel waiter, dressed in Muggle professional attire, greeted him politely. Hello. I'm looking for Mr. Aurelius Dumbledore who lives here, Newt said. The waiter was a little strange and muttered. Strange. Why is everyone looking for Mr. Dumbledore today? What? Many people came to see Mr. Dumbledore today. Newt's heart sank. Who would come to see Aurelius, Grindelwald, or Grimson? Yes, it's already the 3rd wave including you. The waiter nodded. What about others? I don't know, but he is not in the room now. The waiter glanced at the magic display behind the counter, which had information on whether there was anyone in each room. He went out with his wife very early and never came back. Newt walked out with blank eyes. He was a little at a loss. He feels like he screwed up. Originally, he thought that he was entrusted by Dumbledore to help him protect his nephew this time. He needed to prepare well, so he chose to come to Paris this afternoon. The purpose is to prepare more information about the French Ministry of Magic. Why are you so late? I learned from the waiter that Aurelius also left after the first visitor left, and his wife also left with him. What the hell? Aurelius is not even 20 years old, how can he get a wife? He must have been coerced. And the second group of visitors, thankfully, didn't seem to be Grimson, but a beautiful lady with a strong American accent. USA. Newt immediately thought of Tina, but he immediately shook his head and threw the thought away. How is it possible? How could Tina come to Paris? At this moment, Newt's eyes that were flying around met a pair of beautiful eyes. To Tina. Newt was stunned. Even though he hadn't seen her for more than half a year, he would never forget Tina's eyes. Even if she just covered her face with a scarf, he could still recognize her. You have to trust a magizoologist's ability to observe physical characteristics. Tina. Why are you here? Newt stepped forward quickly and grabbed Tina, who was about to turn around and leave. Tina's hands froze and she sat down reluctantly. I'm on a mission, Mr. Scamander. Tina's tone was cold and rather unkind. Mr. Scamander? Newt didn't understand. Tina stood up and turned around to leave, but Newt chased her again. Tina. This one is stupid. Haven't you obviously thought about how to apologize to her many times before? Why can't you say a word? Newt wanted to slap himself twice, but he couldn't. As soon as he saw the person he thought about day and night, Newt immediately forgot about Aurelius. He only had Tina in his eyes at the moment. Mr. Scamander, please don't pester me, okay? I'm on a mission. I know your attitude towards Aurors. Tina didn't look back, and her leather jacket was slapped by her beautiful back. Snap. Newt's heart dropped and he quickly explained. I know my words in that letter may have been a bit extreme. How do you say that? A group of hypocrites who insist on delusion. Tina snorted coldly. Newt Khan was about to get down, and he groveled. I'm sorry, but I can't appreciate those people who are murderous when they encounter something they don't understand or are afraid of. I'm an Auror, but I don't know how to do it, Tina said angrily. I know, because you're the one in the middle. It's done. Newt's limited edition wonderful metaphor appears. Newt's magical brain circuit made Tina stop and stare at him with a look of confusion. What? You're the one in the middle. What did you say? Tina stopped in confusion. Seeing that there was something going on, Newt quickly explained. This description comes from the rune snake with 3 heads. The middle head has vision. Everyone wants Credence to die, except you are more enlightened. Credence? Tina noticed the element, and she looked at Newt. You came here for Credence too? Huh. You said I was some kind of F***king middleman, but you turned out to be 2 of those idiots, huh head? So? Newt looked at her blankly. Tina held her forehead, She let it slip. Who knows why she lost her mind when she saw this silly little freckle. Taking a deep breath, Tina calmed down and looked at Newt. Well, Mr. Scamander, it seems that neither of us are smart. I really hope no one will know your strange metaphor. Maybe it's just me. Newt's voice was weak. It's not important. I think we need to chat and exchange information. Tina sighed. Why are you looking for Credence? Actually, his name is Aurelius. I know, so why are you looking for him? I don't remember you being an Auror. What do these things have to do with you? Tina pulled Newt to the corner of the alley. Newt looked at her for a long time. Newt always felt that Tina would not be like those people. He said, Dumbledore, Aurelius is the nephew of my teacher, Mr. Albus Dumbledore. He hopes to invite I have come to protect Aurelius for a while, because he is in danger during this time. Tina nodded. This reason is very reasonable. Tina was already surprised when she found out Aurelius' full name. Although Dumbledore is not as famous as he was later, he is still highly respected. The Great Dumbledore is enough to show that Dumbledore is famous far and wide. Of course, many of these are due to old lover Grindelwald. The greater the fear Grindelwald brings to the Ministry of Magic around the world, the greater Dumbledore's reputation. The higher the reputation of Dumbledore, the higher the reputation of Dumbledore's Phoenix family. After learning Aurelius's real name, of course he thought of the Dumbledore family. The total number of wizards in the world is about 3 million. Although there are many wizards with the same name or surname, there are also some that are unique. The surname Dumbledore is one of them. There is no doubt that anyone with the surname Dumbledore must be a member of the Dumbledore family. Tina just didn't know that they were uncle-nephew, but when the family was in trouble, it was natural for Dumbledore to want to protect him. After all, there are not many people in the Dumbledore family, and many wizards think that Dumbledore is the only bloodline of the Dumbledore family.
So, you are here to take Aurelius back. Tina breathed a sigh of relief.
Well, I really want to say yes, because this is also the best solution I can think of. Aurelius will be safe with Dumbledore, but what Dumbledore said was confusing. He just asked me to protect him. Newt shook his head and asked, "What about you? Tina, what do you want to do with him?" "Similar to you. Chairman Pickery asked me to find him and bring him back to the MAC for protection. He is a wizard from the Magnesium Kingdom. Damn it. Wouldn't it be better if this was the case? Why was he wanted at that time?" Tina scratched her hair irritably. She has always been very disgusted with the MAC's behavior of not admitting her mistakes, but instead blaming all the blame on Aurelius. Tina's political sensitivity is very low. She doesn't understand the thoughts of these officials, but as a wizard who has always regarded the 12 Aurors as idols and pursued the Auror career as a lifelong pursuit, Tina knows right from wrong. "Excuse me, I don't think the Magic Congress is telling you the truth," Newt interrupted. He has always been disgusted with institutions such as the Ministry of Magic and the Magical Congress, especially after the hearings. Trust in magical officials at the Ministry of Magic has dropped to freezing point. "What do you want me to do?" Tina looked at him. Newt lowered his head in embarrassment. I don't know. No matter what, we have to find him first." A dazzling green light lit up outside the room on the 3rd floor of the hotel. Tina's pupils shrank for a moment. She pushed Newt out of the way and ran towards the hotel. "Hey, Tina." Newt didn't know why. The green light just flashed away and he just didn't see it. She chased Tina all the way to the guest room on the 3rd floor of the hotel. The door was closed, with a "Do Not Disturb" sign hanging on it. Tina hammered the door several times, but there was no movement inside. "What's wrong with you, Tina?" Newt caught up and asked. "This is Aurelius's room." Tina's face was terrifyingly gloomy. "What? I just saw it. The death curse." Tina kept waving her wand, hoping to use the unlocking spell to open the door, but it seemed to be of little use. The door was closed and motionless. "Let me do it. Open the Allaho cave." Newt tried to open the door. As a British wizard, Newt was used to using this instead of the quickly open that Tina and Queenie loved to use. But obviously, it's all useless. An anti-locking spell has been cast here. Most hotels do this, but the one here is the most difficult to open, Newt said. The lock opening spell and the anti-lock opening spell restrain each other, and the comparison is the magic power of the two casters. If the lockpicker is stronger than the anti-lockpicker when casting the spell, the anti-lockpicker spell will not stop it, and vice versa. With Newt's strength, most hotel doors couldn't stop him, but he failed to do so here. "I'll go find the hotel staff." Split into pieces. Looking blankly at Tina's wand, Newt was silent. "Where is the time?" Tina opened the broken door fragments and went in with full vigilance. There is almost no courtesy in the room, but it has a sense of life. There was an unfinished teacup on the coffee table, and the half cup of tea inside had already gone cold. "Did you see it wrong?" Newt couldn't help but ask after seeing the neat room. "It doesn't look like there was an attack here." Tina didn't speak. She slowly walked towards the bedroom inside. She was 100% sure that the green light just now came from the bedroom. I swear by her professionalism as an Auror. Gently pushing open the ajar door, Tina saw it. A short man fell to the ground and hit his head on the ground, but his legs were still on the window sill. Careful. Tina only felt that someone had punched her stomach hard with her fist, and she fell to the side uncontrollably. "What are you doing?" Tina was angry, but she happened to see a green light penetrate the place where she was just standing and hit the floor. "Are you okay, Tina?" Newt grabbed the winged demon that flew back and ran over to help Tina up. "Sorry, it was an emergency just now, I had to." "Did you see that?" Tina didn't care about Newt's attack on her. It was obvious that Newt was trying to save her. If Newt hadn't knocked her away, the killing curse would have fallen on her. "It's the death curse," Newt nodded. "No, I'm asking. Did you see who cast the death curse?" Tina was a little speechless. Who doesn't recognize the death curse? Newt pointed to the light in the center of the bedroom ceiling. "It shines from there." Tina looked at the harmless lamp with an ugly face. "I didn't expect this to be such a dangerous black magic item. What is this hotel doing? Or, is this for Aurelius? A trap prepared by C?" Newt didn't think this was the fault of the hotel. No hotel in a commercial street in the wizarding world would do this. It could only be a wizard hotel in the wilderness, where good and bad people mixed together and black traders and robbers switched seamlessly. The two men did not think that this might be Aurelius himself. In their impression, Aurelius had just been exposed to magic for less than a year. The corpse is coming. Tina didn't dare to rush in rashly. She waved her wand and used the flying spell to drag out the corpse inside. Dead, with no external injuries at all. In addition to what I just saw, he should have died from this dark magic lamp. Tina leaned down and looked at the corpse carefully. As an Auror, she was already used to seeing corpses. Not a hotel staff. Newt looked at the corpse's clothing and shook his head. The hotel's waiters all wear logo uniforms, and you can tell at a glance. Tina looked up at the place where the body had been lying just now in the open window. She frowned and said, "From the posture of his body, I felt like it came in through the window, but I didn't expect it." As soon as he entered, the lamp was triggered, and the death curse dropped from the sky and killed him directly. Probably. Newt felt a little anxious, and he was a little scared. What if the one who got tricked was not this inexplicable gentleman, but Aurelius himself? That would be terrible. Who is it? Who would want to kill Aurelius? Tina thought hard. Newt said decisively, "It must be Grimson." Who? Gunnar Grimson, a notorious criminal, was hired to find Aurelius. Employed by whom? Grindelwald. Newt didn't say anything. What was he going to say? Should he say in front of a magnesium Auror that the British Ministry of Magic hired this criminal? Newt was certain that this was Grimson's handiwork. In his understanding, Grimson was a person who would do whatever it took to save money as long as he could get money. Wow. What day is it today? You two, who will pay for this door? Aurelius's voice rang, and he happened to be returning from the newly bought villa with Nagini. The villa has not been packed up yet, and many daily necessities have not been prepared. Aurelius? Tina and Newt are overjoyed. Aurelius walked over and looked at the dead people on the ground, his heart unmoved. He also felt it was amazing that this should be the first person he killed unexpectedly while he was awake. He originally thought he might feel a little uncomfortable, but he didn't. Perhaps because the people of Avada Kedavra kills don't leave any external injuries, the corpse doesn't look like a dead person at all. "Where did you find him?" asked Aurelius. "In the bedroom inside." Tina looked at him. He fell under the window sill. He was probably attacked and killed when he climbed in through the window. Aurelius walked towards the bedroom. "No. There are dangerous black magic items inside." Tina grabbed him. "Dark magic object? You mean the lamp?" Aurelius asked. "Yes, he almost attacked me just now. Fortunately, Mr. Newt's commander saved me." Tina glanced at Newt and said. Aurelius shook his head. "This is the consequence of breaking into other people's houses. You have triggered the mechanism." When Newt saw Aurelius say this, he and Tina looked at each other. Why is there something wrong with what he said? "Mr. Dumbledore, are you going to tell me that this lamp is yours?" Tina's tone was not very good. "I have some very important information in my room. Is it too much for me to put some protection in place?" Aurelius asked. Tina gritted her teeth. "Your protection just killed someone, and almost killed me. I remember that I hung the 'Do Not Disturb' sign at the door and broke into my room without my permission. It doesn't seem to be my fault, right?" Aurelius Xiao Shang Mian. "But you used the killing curse, Mr. Dumbledore. No matter what, I will tell the Magic Congress the truth about what you did." Got sick again. Aurelius looked at her speechlessly. This character is really amazing. "Haven't you learned your lesson from what happened in New York half a year ago?" Repaired as before, with a click of the wand, the aspects that were dismantled by Tina slowly returned to their original state. Of course, the anti-locking spell above is gone. The repair spell can repair the object itself, but it cannot repair the magic spell attached to it. "Okay, Ms. Goldstein, please give me your long speech when you have time. You two came here uninvited. There is no reason for it, right? I'm here to take you back to the Magic Congress. Grindelwald and his henchmen have been looking for you since he escaped from prison. Chairman Pickery asked me to take you back for strict protection," Tina said coldly. She cannot accept Aurelius' behavior. Protection? I remember she seemed to be looking for me. I left the Magnesium country as she wished, but now she wants me to go back? Is it menopause? It's unpredictable. This makes me very difficult. O'Reilly Wuxi sat on the sofa with his legs crossed. "Do you know your current situation? Grindelwald, the terrorist who destroyed most of New York, is looking for you." Tina suppressed her anger. As it happens, the man who destroyed half of New York is right in front of you. I think Mr. Grindelwald is very polite. He sent me the invitation 3 days in advance. Aurelius took out the invitation sent by Grindelwald and threw it on the table. When Tina heard this, she was horrified. What? He has found you. 8. I couldn't wait to grab the greeting card and read it. Oops. Newt also felt bad, and he quickly told his purpose. Mr. Dumbledore, I am Newt's commander, a student of Albus Dumbledore. He asked me to come here to protect you. But the situation is very bad now. I suggest that we leave France immediately and go to Hogwarts. Only there can we guarantee your safety. Aurelius looked at him and shook his head. I don't know about this. It's true. Newt thought that Aurelius didn't believe him, so he defended. He cares about you very much. These are his exact words. Aurelius looked at him with a half smile, and Newt tried his best to force himself to do something he was uncomfortable with, looking at each other. He hoped that Aurelius could see his sincerity, but he didn't know that by doing so, he exposed all his secrets. Actually, I'm not worried about Grimson, I'm worried about Grindelwald? No, I'm worried about Aurelius. Believe me, Newt, I am not omnipotent, and you are more professional than me in this matter. Huh. Like Dumbledore. Newt thought Dumbledore was asking him to protect him, but in fact, it was like surveillance or surveillance. He knew that Obscurus was terrifying, especially in Obscurus who lived to adulthood. Therefore, he asked Newt to come to him. In terms of research on the Obscurus, Newt was more professional than Dumbledore. Dumbledore was familiar with the Obscurus because of Ariana, but he did not specialize in studying the Obscurus. Since ancient times, there has been very little research information on the Obscurus. Except Newt. This is why he told Newt that Newt was more professional than him in this matter. He refused Dumbledore's invitation. Dumbledore did not force him out of concern for his family, but Dumbledore was worried that the Obscurus in his body would explode and cause a greater disaster, so he tricked Newt. However, it can be said that it is protection. The outbreak of the Obscurus destroys everything, but it will destroy the Obscurus itself. Preventing his outburst was also for his life from Dumbledore's perspective. In just a few breaths, Aurelius made a good guess based on what he knew in Newt's experience. He didn't reveal it, he didn't want anyone to know that he was a Legilimency master. He thought for a while and said, I will meet with Grindelwald in 3 days. No. Tina and Newt said in unison. Aurelius frowned. I don't seem to have asked for your opinion. Tina's cheeks twitched, and she seemed to have made up her mind. I'm sorry, Mr. Dumbledore. I absolutely cannot allow you to see Grindelwald. You have no idea how terrible he is. Looking at Tina's slowly raised wand, Aurelius said casually, so you plan to show me how powerful you are first. I won't hurt you. Pass out. No, Tina. Tina was obviously worried, and the tip of the wand bloomed with red light. But he never expected that Aurelius's eyes suddenly flashed with a strange light, and Tina's unconscious body was bounced out, hitting the dead body on the ground, and exploded into a firework. By the way, Tina herself was also deprived of control of the curse, fell out, and the wand rolled aside. Eyes? Just one look broke Tina's spell? Newt was stunned by this scene. What kind of magic level can break the spell of an elite auror with just a look? Newt asked himself that he would never be able to do it, and even he doubted Dumbledore. He has never heard of this ability. Of course he didn't understand, because this was not a wizard's magic at all, but an explosive rune that Aurelius had already filled with energy. The effect of the blasting rune is to cause massive damage to inanimate objects after being charged. Wizards are living beings and are not affected by explosions, but what about magic spells? This was a sudden idea, but the effect was surprisingly good. The armored spell that Aurelius was preparing to use was useless. He clearly felt that the damage from the explosion was a little overflowing. Facing the auror's spell, the damage was overflowing. It is reasonable to infer that even if it is Dumbledore or Grindelwald's spell, the damage will overflow. The curse, explosion, should also be effective. After all, a lot of damage from explosions is percentage. This is good news, he has developed a new use of explosive runes. Ms. Goldstein, did you know? According to the laws of the French Ministry of Magic, if you cast a spell on me first, I have unlimited rights to counterattack. Aurelius stood up and said, holding the tip of the wand began to glow green. Death curse. Yes. Aurelius' favorite attack spell is powerful and does enough damage. A single point attack will not hurt flowers and plants. It has no pain and is in line with the spirit of humanity. It will not suppress animals. A stunning death scene. This is simply the greatest invention. At least it is perfect when it comes to spells with the purpose of killing. Aurelius doesn't like messy magic. He advocates the essence rather than the excess. Just know how to use most spells. Aurelius has only learned 3 magic spells used in battle until now. Single target basic attack Avada, group attack AoE Fire Curse, defensive skill Iron Armor Curse. I originally planned to learn another apparition skill, but it was abandoned after I acquired Ali. The Phoenix's apparition is much stronger than the wizard's. The green light was flashing, Tina's eyes widened, and she stepped back again and again, her eyes filled with fear. Although the death curse is not called the unforgivable curse in other countries, it is still one of the most feared black arts. It's not about its lethality, it's about the magic that hurts others first, hurts yourself. The ultimate killing intent contained in it will have a great impact on the caster himself. This leads to the fact that wizards who like to use the death curse are themselves very evil dark wizards. After all, the previous trap was separated by 1 layer, but in the real face of the life-killing curse that was about to take action at any time, Tina was ready to kill all the evil fantasies of the dark wizard. No, no, no. Mr. Dumbledore, please don't. Newt panicked and quickly stopped him. Nagini seemed not to have seen all this, still standing behind the sofa behind Aurelius, and the years were quiet. She was very familiar with Aurelius, especially after spending time with him over the past few months. After waiting for so long, she still doesn't know what it means. It's nothing more than scary. If he really wanted to kill someone, would Aurelius still need to charge up his life-killing curse? Ah! Green light bloomed, and Tina's screams were ear-piercing. Newt's eyes widened, the wrist-thick green lightning arrived in an instant. Can we sit down and have a chat? Tina was stunned as an inconspicuous mosquito fluttered down from in front of her eyes. Sorry, there are mosquitoes in the hotel. I hate mosquitoes. Aurelius showed a bright smile and pulled Tina up. Ms. Goldstein, please work hard. How can an Auror be afraid of mosquitoes like this? Where's the little bug? Newt breathed a sigh of relief, listening to Aurelius's words and not suffocating to death. Do you use the death curse to kill mosquitoes in your home? Tina was trembling all over, the killing curse was right in front of her eyes. No more than 3 or 4 inches, if there is a slight deviation, she will be the one who dies. The death curse is perfect for a killing technique. The only drawback is that it is non-directional. As the saying goes, even if you can hide, you can also accidentally kill someone. So close and the mosquitoes are so small, is this not scary? You madman. Tina trembled. Aurelius is very satisfied with the effect. Tina is a woman with an excessive sense of justice, but obviously her justice is not necessarily true justice, so sometimes she inevitably does things that she thinks are right but are annoying. Hope to convince her. Sorry, Aurelius never likes to show off. Tina is not someone worthy of his saliva. So it is better to shock. Now it seems that the effect is very good, Tina is much more honest. Mr. Dumbledore, please don't do this next time. It's very dangerous. Newt rubbed his head. He was really scared just now. Mosquitoes are so annoying, Aurelius explained insincerely. He sat back on the sofa and said, Mr. Grindelwald is very polite, and I can't be rude, and with all due respect, you guys don't seem to be more trustworthy than Grindelwald to me. At least, Grindelwald had someone send him a greeting card, but you just tore me down. We saw the scene of the death curse, and we were worried that you were. Newt quickly explained. Aurelius raised his hand. That's why I didn't pursue you. Besides, Mr. Scamander, thank Dumbledore for your concern for me. I shouldn't need anyone to protect me. Newt opened his mouth, but when he thought about the exquisite killing curse just now, he was speechless. Newt's current strength is at the elite Auror level, not much better than Tina. In short, Newt felt that he couldn't stop the death curse just now. So here comes the question. Who is protecting whom for a bodyguard whose combat effectiveness is not as good as that of the person being protected? However, considering that this was a task given by Dumbledore, Newt felt that Dumbledore must know his nephew, and Dumbledore must have a purpose in letting him come. He smuggled himself to France and spent 50 galleons. Should he go back in such a dejected manner? No, Mr. Dumbledore, please listen to me. I don't know why Dumbledore asked me to protect you. I am neither an Auror nor a powerful wizard like him, but I believe that Dumbledore must have a purpose in asking me to come. Newt spoke quickly. Whenever this introverted little freckle was anxious, he would always say a lot. He is your uncle, you should believe that he will not harm you. These words left Aurelius quite speechless. Yes, he didn't want to harm me, but he was afraid that I would harm others. But Aurelius couldn't say this yet. Is it possible that he wants to tell Newt? My uncle is just afraid that I, the Obscurus, will destroy Paris, so he asked you to guard against me? He can't even say that he has completely controlled Obscurus. As for the summoner being able to contract with Obscurus, this secret will rot in his stomach. In fact, it was impossible for Aurelius to tell Newt and Tina that he was an Obscurus. Less than a year had passed since the New York incident, so he would be asking for trouble. He could tell Dumbledore because his last name was Dumbledore. Dumbledore will not tell others this secret, because if it is revealed that Aurelius was responsible for the previous New York incident, Aurelius can walk away, but he, Albus Dumbledore, is Aurelius. Monk's Temple. The Dumbledore family cannot support such a big family. Therefore, even if Dumbledore knew that Aurelius was the culprit of the New York incident, he could only tearfully let his old lover Grindelwald take the blame. Anyway, Lao Ge has a lot of blame to bear, so he doesn't care about these one or two. A few days ago, a house in the hiding place was visited by thieves, and Grindelwald was accused of doing it. In the years since Grindelwald was active, the case detection rate of the Ministry of Magic in various European countries has increased dramatically. Anyway, if the criminal can't be found, he will be hit on the head. Looking at the sincere Newt, Aurelius tapped his head with his fingers. Okay, Mr. Scamander, if you insist. But please don't disturb me. This was a tacit agreement that he would cooperate with Newt. The main reason was that Aurelius felt that he had made a lot of money with Newt. The Steen National Bank was still looking for that batch of gold. Aurelius felt that it was appropriate to show Newt some love, even if Newt didn't know it. Of course, there is no reason to be too early, and another reason is that Aurelius just saw the little card Dumbledore gave him from Newt's memory. Due to the effect of the Red Dan loyalty charm, even Legilimency could not see the address above, but he knew the plot of the movie he had watched in his previous life and knew that it was Nicolem's safe house. He is looking for Nicholas Flamel. There is too little existing information about an ancient curse like the blood curse, especially the original method of casting the spell. Only old monsters like Nicolema can possibly retain. If you want to study blood curses, the original method of casting spells is undoubtedly extremely important. The original idea was to ask Dumbledore, but this obviously required a favor, and the old bee's favor was not that easy to owe. Now, if I follow Newt and meet Nicholas Flamel, it will undoubtedly be a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. Then let's talk about you, Miss Goldstein. Aurelius looked at Tina, who calmed down. Although you are an Auror of the Magical Congress of Magnesia, and this is France. You have no law enforcement rights, right? To be honest, with the way you attacked me just now, I can definitely use the death curse. I'll hit you without paying any price. Aurelius looked at her. My mission is to take you back. We are protecting you. Tina's expression looked very sad, and there was a sense of unknowing in her eyes when she looked at him. Aurelius could completely guess what Tina was thinking, and he didn't need Legilimency. From Tina's point of view, she is here to save Aurelius from fire and water. But just because she guessed it, it didn't mean that Aurelius would be grateful, nor did it mean that Aurelius would be at her mercy. Do you think I believe it? Aurelius looked at her contemptuously. Miss Goldstein, I remember that 7 or 8 months ago, you told me with all your heart that I would receive compensation from the Magic Congress. But what did I gain? Tina's expression was a bit unbearable. She had always felt sorry for Aurelius about this matter, but her sense of justice prevented her from turning a blind eye. Wanted? Deported? I am now leaving my homeland and wandering around Europe. Miss Goldstein, do you think if you were me, should you believe what you just said? Would you trust someone who is covering up others in order to whitewash the peace? The sinful Magic Congress? Aurelius didn't mention anything else, only grasping this point. Tina fell silent. If you can't beat it, you will lose. What else is there to say? Okay, you too. I don't need to mention some things anymore. I was very happy today. I saw an old friend and made a new friend. If nothing happens, would you like to stay for a meal tonight? Nagini's craftsmanship is very good. Aurelius winked at Nagini, who responded with a slight smile. Excuse me. Tina was reluctant. She didn't want to see Aurelius at all now. What she did just now frightened her, no less than the shadow brought by the execution chamber 9 months ago. But considering the mission and Newt's crazy hints beside her, Tina agreed. Nagini said hello and went out. These days, Nagini has been borrowing the hotel kitchen to cook. Zuawu's appetite is too big. If he buys everything from the hotel, he will probably go bankrupt. After dealing with Newt and Tina, Aurelius took a closer look at the body. The cause of death is not important, it can be seen at a glance. What interests Aurelius is his identity. Who is he? A thief. Kind of, but Aurelius didn't think so. Although this guy behaves like a thief and dresses like a thief, he climbs out of the window at night, which is the proper behavior of a gentleman. But Aurelius just didn't believe that he was a thief. The main reason was that a thief must have a reason for stealing, right? He stayed in his room for 10 days, and spent the first 2 months living in seclusion, visiting a few Ministry of Magic officials, and that was all. He didn't reveal his wealth, so why would the thief target him? No thief breaks into an empty door without any reason. If he doesn't step on it better, what if he is a poor man? I gently uncovered the corpse and searched it, but found nothing. Except for a well-maintained wand, there is no important information. Objects outside the body can be placed and removed, but the things on the body cannot be removed. Rolling up the sleeves of the dead body, a strange tattoo was revealed. It looked like a vulture, but it had 3 legs. What mark is this? Backquote. Aurelius didn't recognize it, so he looked at Newt. The 3-legged vulture must be a magical animal no matter how you look at it, but unexpectedly, Newt, the world's #1 expert on magical animals, also looked confused. Isn't this a magical animal? Aurelius asked. Newt shook his head. Never seen it, never heard of it. Could it be the symbol of some mysterious organization? Aurelius looked at Tina again. This magnesium ore might know. Tina also shook her head. That's it, I don't know anything about my feelings. Aurelius continued to look at the body. In the mouth of the corpse, Aurelius found a tooth hiding poison. Good guy, a dead soldier? Aurelius shook his head. Nothing else is really gained. But fortunately, for wizards, there is something that makes it easier to leave evidence, a magic wand. Excuse me, who can help me? Aurelius handed over the corpse's wand. Tina took out her wand and pointed it, flashback curse. Miraculous light emerged from the tops of the 2 wands, connected together, and the golden light shone, recreating the magic spell the wands had once cast. Ilaho Cave. There is a counter spell on the hotel room door, but there is no window? Illusion spell. Tina looked carefully at the manifested images. And apparating, Newt added. Can you show it a little more? Look where he comes from. Aurelius reminded. Tina shook her head. No, the flashback spell can only look at the spells that the wand has cast before. The flashbacks continue. It can be seen that this is a person who relies heavily on magic spells, and most of them are relatively advanced magic spells. Yes, spells such as the opening of the Ilaho Cave and the disillusionment curse are actually real, advanced spells. It's not how difficult these spells are to cast, but how few people use them. In fact, many people have the illusion that wizards have mastered all kinds of magical magic and seem to be omnipotent. This is not right. In fact, most wizards reach the pinnacle of their lives the moment they graduate. Normal life, work, and traveling are no different from ordinary people except for the tool of magic. Who hasn't tried to use wire to open an iron lock as a child? But except for thieves and locksmiths, who in the normal world would study lockpicking skills every day. The same goes for wizards. Unlocking spells and body transformation spells are almost useless in daily life. Most wizards commonly use various life spells. If they are not used or cast for a long time, simple spells will degrade. In comparison, the disembodiment spell is very difficult, but almost every adult wizard can cast it in quantity. This is where practice makes perfect. It's just that the stories I came across in my previous life were all closely related to combat, so most of the characters who appeared were combat talents, which led to the misunderstanding. Don't think too highly of wizards. Except for their innate magic power, wizards are no different from ordinary people. There are geniuses and mediocre people, and there is a division of labor. The owner of this wand has no life spells in the short term, but only combat magic. Black magic is also commonplace. Sketch the image experience through the casting of these spells. Aurelius judged that this was a person who wandered on the edge of battle, and he was most likely to be shady. This eliminates formal combat professions such as orer and duelist. In addition, Aurelius discovered that his battles were very frequent. Broken down, there were at least a dozen battles of varying lengths within the limited flashback duration of the flashback spell. This is a good idea. Aurelius discovered that he always used non-fatal spells in battles, mainly confinement and control. Petrification, freezing ground, leg tripping and leg locking spells were the most common ones, and in among these curses, there are occasionally death curses such as death curses and thunderbolt explosions. This shows that his battles are mainly based on subduing and capturing, and he will only choose to kill the target when he is unable to subdue and capture. In fact, Orer really fits this kind of fighting model. but his clothes and the fangs in his mouth make him look like a well-trained killer. So, what does this person do? Wait. Aurelius suddenly raised his head. Has he used the iron armor curse? Maybe not. Is there such a wizard? He fights frequently, but he has never used the iron armor curse. Aurelius frowned. But he used a lot of obstacle spells, Tina said. Although the obstacle curse is also a defensive spell, it is mainly for control and cannot replace the role of the armor curse at all. Aurelius shook his head. He suddenly saw what Newt seemed to have in mind. He looked like one and asked, "What did you find?" "He is a magical animal hunter." Newt looked grim. "I have seen these people. They make a living by hunting magical animals and selling various magical animal materials. Because a large amount of powder is fresh and the best, these people generally, they will be captured alive and imprisoned, and then killed to obtain materials when it is time to sell them. Fantastic animal hunters mostly work in small groups of 3 to 5. They have a clear division of labor. There are those who are responsible for prevention, those who are responsible for capturing, those who are responsible for tracking, etc. This person should be in charge of such a team capture and besiege people." As he said that, Newt's face turned ugly. "We missed it. Such a team acted almost at the same time. When he came here, his companions must not be far away. But after such a long study, his companions may have run away long ago." "Wait. Hunter of fantastic beasts. You seem to have said. What is it called? Grimson, Gunnar Grimson. He is the most famous magical animal hunter in the world, monopolizing more than half of the global illegal magical animal materials market. I met him at the British Ministry of Magic before coming here. The British Ministry of Magic hired him to track you." Newt looked at Aurelius. Maybe this person is one of Grimson's men. Call. As the fierce flames rose, a corpse and the last evidence of a person's legacy in this world disappeared into nothingness. Li Huo. This is the terrible Li Huo. As a kind of terrifying magic, it is still debated whether it should be classified as a curse or a black magic. Its terrifying power shocks everyone. The corpse disappeared almost in the blink of an eye, almost making Newt and Tina think there was something wrong with their memories. "There was a corpse here just now, right?" "What are you doing?" Tina exclaimed. "That's evidence." Aurelius waved the wand he had just obtained and lightly touched the dark flames. The terrifying fierce fire turned out to be extremely tame. It poured into the wand and disappeared obediently. "Evidence? What is it for?" "Find this person's identity and prove that you were attacked." "Attack? I didn't even see him alive." "Well, Ms. Goldstein, I'm not an Auror and I don't need evidence." Aurelius put away his wand. He decided to use this one in the future, as it had more projects than his previous one. Tina was silent. She didn't like Aurelius, but she had no choice. The deterrent effect of life-killing curse was very good. Even if she was dissatisfied or disapproved of it, she would not sing the opposite. "It's time to eat." Nagini came in wiping her sweat. Behind her was the hotel's suspended trolley, with a huge thigh of an unknown creature lying across it, and several very good-looking side dishes. Aurelius and Nagini had already eaten, but since Aurelius left Newt alone, he couldn't help but give them food. "Just treat it as a midnight snack. This, Mr. Dumbledore, is too enthusiastic, we can't eat it." Looking at the exaggerated roast leg, Newt was shocked. What kind of big eater does it take to eat this? He soon found out. "That's not our." Aurelius opened the box, and Zhaowu, who had already smelled the fragrance, jumped up from inside, startling Tina but surprising Newt, who was extremely obsessed with magical animals. "Zo. This is a very rare magical animal." Ah woo. Zhuowu didn't care about anyone else, he only had eyes for that roasted leg. "But I remember that Zhuowu is a magical animal unique to China. Why is it here with you?" Newt looked at Zhuowu as if he were a lover, not even paying attention to Tina beside him. "I got rid of it at a circus." Aurelius explained casually, and led a few people to the dining table. "Okay, let's have dinner." The meal was not bad, the atmosphere was harmonious just by chatting. After dinner, Newt was placed in the living room, while Tina stayed in Nagini's room. Aurelius didn't like sharing a room with anyone, especially a man. Tina was a little disturbed and couldn't sleep. Today's events made her feel helpless and uneasy. She didn't know why Aurelius had changed so much in less than a year. Especially with the terrifying death curse and the unknown magic fire, she simply couldn't be equated with the timid orphan back then. An unknown demonic fire. Yes, the well-known characteristic of the fire curse is that it changes on its own, showing a monster-like appearance. At the same time, It has the characteristics of becoming increasingly violent and difficult to control. It is attributed to black magic. On the one hand, it is the negative emotions it mobilizes. On the other hand, it is because it is difficult to control. Most wizards will play with fire and burn themselves. But none of these characteristics appeared in Aurelius's spell. Because Aurelius has a very strong talent for the fire curse, or he has an absurdly high talent for all black magic. If other wizards' fire curse is level 1, then Aurelius's fire curse is at least level 5. Grindelwald is about the same, and if Albus Dumbledore also learns fire, he should be good too. But please be careful. Aurelius learned Lihuo for only 7 or 8 months. Because the research on the severe fire curse has reached a very advanced level, the characteristics of those severe fire curses have disappeared due to the powerful control over the severe fire, and have even been rendered with the color of black flames like the Obscurus. Tina didn't know this, and she certainly wouldn't think of the fire curse. Okay, get some rest early. Nagini hugged the new bed she asked for from the front desk of the hotel and tried her best to appear gentle and friendly. She knew that Aurelius probably didn't like this aura of magnesia very much, but since Aurelius showed his dislike, she had to be as gentle as possible. It has to be said that in the past 6 months, Nagini's growth has been more than just learning magic. What's your name? Tina hugged the pillow and leaned against the bed. My name is Nagini. Are you a couple? Tina asked casually. Nagini's face suddenly turned red, but she still whispered, No, he saved me. And he promised to treat me. Treatment? Are you sick? Then you should go to the hospital. Tina couldn't help but said. Nagini smiled and shook her head. It's useless, no therapist can save me. Okay, good night. Nagini walked out. She doesn't have the room anymore, she's going to live in Aurelius' suitcase. Over the past 6 months, the effect of her blood curse has worsened to the point where she will transform into a giant python whenever she falls asleep. Aren't you going to rest yet? Nagini walked into Aurelius' room. The trap on the ceiling was still guarding this bedroom. No outsiders could come in, except for Nagini and Zuowu. Aurelius had whitelisted them as early as setting up the trap. Aurelius was sitting on the bed. In front of him was an enlarged bookcase, which he temporarily used as a table. It's still early, I'll look at these notes again. Aurelius smiled. Nagini sat next to him, feeling a little guilty. I'm sorry. You haven't had a peaceful sleep for a long time because of me, but I can't help you. You've just learned magic, and you haven't even used the levitation spell yet. There's no need to be harsh on yourself. Aurelius smiled. Nagini also changed her subject. Are these notes useful? There must be some. To be honest, I also admire Sebastian's fathers for being able to create a method to control the blood curse without completely understanding the principles of the blood curse. It's incredible. Ori. Leah said with emotion, their ideas are very interesting. Things. What ideas? Tame, Aurelius said. They believe that since the blood-cursed orcs eventually turned into beasts because the beast nature is constantly affecting and assimilating the human part, then if this part of the beast nature is tamed and made into a vassal, this impact can be greatly avoided. Is it like an animal tamer? But how to do it? I see Skander taming animals, whipping, starving, and rewarding them, but I can't do these. Do I have to go to bed hungry? Nagini was in trouble. So I said I need the original principles of blood spell casting. These information can only be used as a reference. The situations are different. You and Sebastian cannot generalize. Aurelius explained. First of all, she has the blood of the mermaid siren. This is the biggest difference. She can use part of the siren. Magic can help, but you can't do this. Secondly, your animal forms are also very different. Although I suspect that the python you transformed into is also a magical creature, after all, poisonous pythons should not exist in the Muggle world. But, you have to know that although magical animals it cannot be generalized, but snakes are always difficult to tame. On the other hand, Sebastian is different. She can turn into Leviathan, and she looks like a gentler virgin Leviathan. This is a kind of creature with healing ability. Small Leviathan. Aurelius was like a doctor, carefully explaining every idea he had. As far as I know, sirens have the ability to tame Leviathan. These few books are what I learned from sirens. I bought it from the bookstore in the city, and it records that the sirens used to control their tamed Leviathan beasts to fight against wizards. These all provide the basis for Sebastian to tame the beast in his body. Aurelius paused and said with some uncertainty, and, I highly doubt that the real key is the siren's tears. That black pearl-like alchemical product? Yes, I suspect that thing has the ability to enter the soul. What? Because no matter how I look at these materials, they all focus on the core of taming, but they don't mention how to tame them. You are right. Such taming is indeed like an animal tamer, and the premise is that an animal tamer is needed. There are two individuals with the beast. This is impossible for the blood-cursed orcs. If they can be divided into two individuals, why bother to domesticate them? Aurelius boldly hypothesized. Then, the body is shared and can be divided into two. Each individual has only a soul. The blood-cursed orc will have two entangled souls, the human and the beast, and they are fighting for control of the body together. Only in this way can it be domesticated from the soul level. But the soul is imaginary. Today, most of our research on the soul is prohibited, and some of it is cruel black magic, which is very superficial. We can't even perceive the location of our own soul. How easy is it to complete the domestication of the soul level? You can't do it yourself, so you rely on external things? Yes, but these are just my guesses. There is no other evidence at all. Aurelius couldn't help but shook his head and sighed. It's okay, you are already great, I still have time. Nagini mistakenly thought that Aurelius was a little disappointed, and comforted him softly. Aurelius didn't explain either. In fact, he already has some ideas in mind. It is not difficult to verify his conjecture. He had used a method of soul manifestation when condensing runes before. Wizards cannot manifest souls, but summoners can. As long as Nagini is taught the method of soul manifestation, he will soon be able to verify whether his conjecture is correct. He hoped that he was right, because as long as it was confirmed that the blood-cursed orc's beast transformation was the result of another soul, he could further make a contract and turn the beast soul into a defender. The summoner's inheritance that allowed Aurelius to escape the crisis of life and death can also help the blood-curse orcs escape the fate of the curse. But now is not the time. He has to prepare for the meeting with Grindelwald in 3 days, no, 2 days. He still doesn't know what Grindelwald is going to do. Being in the storm will naturally involve a lot of Aurelius energy. After chatting for a while, Nagini went into the suitcase to rest, and Aurelius also put away the bookbox. Early the next morning, Aurelius opened the door and saw Tina and Newt, who were a little overwhelmed. He couldn't help laughing and said, "What are you doing? Who knows how many traps you have? I don't want to die in vain," Tina said in the middle. Aurelius shook his head and drew out his wand to disperse all the traps he had laid before. With all the salutes, and the three of them went out the door. Under the strange look of the innkeeper, Aurelius checked out and left. An unlucky guy died yesterday, and no one found out about it. Where do you want to go? Compared to the boring Newt, Tina's words were much denser. Moving, Aurelius said, turning around and entering a grocery store. I spent a lot of galleons and purchased a lot of daily necessities at one time. Galleons are the currency of the British wizarding world, but they are actually the common currency of the entire Europe except the Russian Ministry of Magic, and even the African Ministry of Magic on the southern coast of the Mediterranean. The main reason is that the economies of these countries are controlled by gringotts. There are only 3 types of magic currencies that are popular in the magic world around the world. The dropper is the currency of the magnesium country, the galleon system is the most widely used in the world, and the other is called French gold, which is not French gold, but a currency belonging to the Chinese Ministry of Magic. Essentially a very valuable material, but given monetary properties. 0. Do you plan to live in France in the future? Newt asked as he watched Aurelius stuffing large and small bags into his suitcase. Of course, the French Ministry of Magic is pretty good. Aurelius glanced at Tina with a sideways glance. The meaning was self-evident. It was better than some magical congress anyway. Tina's heart sank. Now that she has settled in France, the hope of following her back to the United States is even slimmer. Arriving at the villa in District 13, Newt and Tina became the first guests to visit. Waving the magic wand and pointing the purchased items into place, the style of the entire villa changed, from a classical French style to a mysterious kingdom belonging to a wizard. Various magic instruments come into play. Especially the cart that wields a broom and mop, which will ensure the cleanliness of the entire villa. It's so convenient. Tina looked at the car with envy. Alchemy props? Yes, France is the alchemy capital of the world. More than half of the world's alchemy masters are from France, and half of them are Nicolema's disciples. Aurelius looked at Tina in surprise. Small eyes, a little speechless. What exactly do wizards learn in school? In addition to magic, I also teach you some common sense. An Auror who knows nothing about the most powerful ministry of magic in the world. Aurelius is really becoming more and more dissatisfied with the magic world. Grindelwald deserves to have so many followers. Speaking of Grindelwald, by the way, What is he doing? Alone, Grindelwald arrives for the appointment. From the deep and quiet drainage outlet, Grindelwald walked with crisp footsteps. This is a nice hidden place, especially when there are no floods. No one will come to check it out for hundreds of years. A tall man has been waiting for a long time. If Newt were here, he would definitely recognize that this tall man was the Grimson he saw at the hearing. Grimson had a sinister look on his face. When he saw Grindelwald, he opened his mouth and said, "Is your information accurate?" "What?" Grindelwald was a little surprised. He thought he was here to hear good news, but why did he seem to be here to investigate? That boy. He is not what you call a rookie. When the vulture saw them leaving with a salute, he went to the hotel to check for fear of losing him, but he never came back, silently, as if the world has evaporated. Grimson said with an ugly expression. Perhaps it was out of his disgust for the hunter of magical animals that Newt was really fooled. The uninvited guest who broke into Aurelius's room in the hotel was really Grimson's subordinate. And it seemed that he was a subordinate that Grimson valued very much, even going so far as to challenge Grindelwald for him. Grindelwald thought thoughtfully. It seems that I still underestimated his talent. It's really amazing. He has such terrifying power in less than a year after being exposed to magic. My judgment is correct, he will be a helper. An important piece of the puzzle for us to build a great cause. You don't know either. Grimson looked at Grindelwald with some suspicion. Grindelwald pressed his shoulders with both hands and said earnestly, "We are gathered together for the greater good. We have the same goals and like-minded people. Why should I hide it from you? What good does this do to me? What does this do to us? What good are my great ideals? Or do you think I'm one of those cowards from the Ministry of Magic? Listen. I know my credibility." Grimson is very aware of his reputation, which is almost ruined by the streets. Although this bottomless style of conduct has brought him a lot of benefits, it means he doesn't mind his bad reputation. Bad people may not necessarily not know that they are doing bad things. In fact, they may know better than way do you. But for the sake of profit or something else, they would rather go against their own hearts. So there are bad guys and criminals. Grimson. Grindelwald interrupted him and looked at him seriously. We are gathering together for a greater benefit, so that your name will shine with glory in the future. We are doing the greatest thing. Let wizards rule the world. This is a glorious and resolute fight. This is a great cause. You and I have never been subordinates. We are brothers. I trust you and have nothing to do with anyone or anything. Just because we have something in common. Pursuit and ideal. A brainwashing conversation was like the first time they met a few years ago. Grimson used to be a hunter of magical creatures who was not afraid of meat and vegetables, but everything changed after meeting Grindelwald. For the greater good, just this sentence made countless wizards willing to go through fire and water. Grimson was also attracted by Grindelwald's charisma, which shone like the sun. Grimson possesses extremely powerful strength. He could have been one person inferior to 10,000 people in the witch cult party, but he was not. He has been brainwashed by Grindelwald, a brainwashing more terrifying than the Imperious Curse. For the sake of one of Grindelwald's ideals, he was willing to hide himself. Even the members of the Wiccan party did not know that he was also a companion. He became Grindelwald's black glove and led his hunting team to make great contributions to Grindelwald's rule. Tell me, Yuanwi, Bob Long, my best catcher. The sacrifice of our companion makes each of us heartache, but it is for the greater good. He is a hero, and we will give him a reasonable treatment. Grindelwald is not just talking, he also knows that His Majesty, needing both grace and power, compensation was immediately promised. What should we do next? Grimson raised his head. Continue to monitor him. No, this matter is no longer something that your men can get involved in. Don't make fearless sacrifices. Grindelwald refused. After thinking for a while, Grindelwald said, I will ask Mr. Soprano to take action. You and your team. I hope you can occupy Père Lachaise cemetery as soon as possible. We need a rally to announce my return to the world. Grimson was reluctant, but he still did not refuse. This great wizard second only to Grindelwald in the Wiccan party, but he was also the most deeply affected. Watching Grimson use apparition to fly away, Grindelwald stayed where he was and thought. He can deceive others with his talk, but it would be bad if he even believed it himself. He knew that he was doing something with huge impact, completely subverting the survival rules of wizards in the past hundreds of years, and completely tearing apart the veil of the magical world. Such a major event must be done with sufficient caution, and it cannot be done by just shouting slogans. The biggest trouble in this is of course Dumbledore, his once best friend and comrade, has now become his biggest obstacle. Forced by the blood alliance, they fight all the time but are unable to take action against each other in a practical sense. This has been the case for more than 10 years. This has almost become his inner demon. If Dumbledore hadn't stopped him, he would have fulfilled his dream long ago. Fortunately, God sent credence to him. Grindelwald laughed strangely as he thought about it. He was so satisfied. Being able to achieve such achievements in less than a year after being exposed to magic, such a talent, is terrifying. In 3 to 5 years, or at most 10 to 8 years, he will definitely be able to catch up with himself or Dumbledore. This is the most perfect gift God gave him. It's a pity that this gift is not easy to get. He wants to persuade Aurelius to devote himself to this great cause, but Aurelius, surnamed Dumbledore, happens to be the one. Dumbledore. God really loves this family. Grindelwald shook his head, sighed with emotion, and apparated away. Something went wrong and he had to change hands. There were a lot of things that had to be arranged, especially Aurelius who couldn't escape under his nose. Where are you going? Abernethy stopped and turned his head. It was Crow who looked down on him and opposed him. I don't think I need to tell you where I'm going, Abernathy said coldly. Ha! Abernathy. What is it? That makes you dare to talk to me like this? Crow said with an angry look on his face. You saved Grindelwald? You can sit on our heads and shit? A bastard. Know your identity. Crow's finger poked Abernathy's heart, which stung a little. Compared with the tall and handsome Crow, Abernethy is short, small, and not outstanding in appearance. Crow was condescending and looked down upon this lucky boy. Since Grindelwald was released from prison, Crow has noticed that Grindelwald's trust in him has declined. This is a red flag. As a wizard at a magic house, everything in Europe should have nothing to do with him, but he appeared next to Grindelwald. The composition of Grindelwald's followers is very complex. Most of them are ordinary wizards who are bewitched by his idea of wizards rule the world. Miraculously, there are a large number of Muggle-born wizards among them. Grindelwald's philosophy is very strange. He does not see pure blood or mixed blood at all. He only sees wizards, squibs and Muggles. He can be kind to every wizard and have a lot of patience, which undoubtedly makes those Muggle wizards who feel discriminated against in the wizarding world fall in love with him. But there is also a large portion of speculators. Crow is one of them. For this reason, he traveled all the way from the magical world of Japan to Europe to follow Grindelwald. In addition to different purposes, there are also differences in identity and combat power. As mentioned earlier, due to historical reasons, pure-blood wizards have more magical knowledge and resources, resulting in the average achievements of pure-blood wizards being higher than those of Muggle wizards and mixed-blood wizards. This is one of the sources of pure-blood theory. Although Grindelwald did not divide wizards into 3, 6 or 9 grades, he was a supporter of the theory of strength. This means that most of the people who occupy high positions in the witch cult party are still these pure-blood wizards and pure-blood nobles. In the past, Grindelwald had always trusted Crow and others, but since escaping from prison, Crow found that Grindelwald was alienating himself. It was very subtle, but Crow noticed it. He couldn't figure it out, but this Abernathy, a little person Crow looked down upon, suddenly appeared, and Grindelwald loved to take him with him wherever he went. This was his treatment in the past. The sense of crisis, coupled with Crow's disdain for Abernathy, a bastard who didn't even have a surname, all combined to promote his hostility towards Abernathy. Abernathy looked at Crow showing off his power, his expression as usual. Crow is dissatisfied with this guy's performance. He should be trembling with fear now. Crow immediately understood why Abernathy, who had always been timid, had no fear at all. Sir, I didn't see Abernathy trembling like chaff, but he tried it himself first. Grindelwald's figure appeared behind them. He glanced at Crow coldly. Abernathy is our companion and our comrade in arms. You shouldn't be like this. The calm tone made Crow even more scared. Let's all do the work. Grindelwald seemed to have no intention of pursuing the matter, and Crow couldn't believe it. But he didn't see the snake letters spit out by Abernathy, and the cold vertical pupils that seemed to be an illusion flashed away. Where did you want to go just now? Abernathy stood behind Grindelwald. I want to go find my family. Abernathy deadpanned. You have changed a lot. Grindelwald patted his shoulder with satisfaction. Although Abernathy was persuaded by him and was willing to fight for the greater good, Grindelwald knew that he was not willing. In other words, from a certain perspective, Abernathy and Crow were the same. Humanoids, they all want to gain something by working for themselves. There is nothing wrong with this. The bustle in the world is all for benefit, and the hustle and bustle in the world is all for benefit. Although Grindelwald did not know this ancient saying from China, the truth is this. Abernethy has a unique talent, which Grindelwald has just established. He has a sense of smell that is comparable to magic, and Abernethy is indispensable for being able to find Aurelius so quickly. As soon as he landed in Portugal, Abernethy was sure that Credence had been here, and then discovered Aurelius Dumbledore, the only visitor, and then traced it to France. You know, Aurelius went to Portugal 3 months ago. What kind of Schaushan level nose is this? But this is Abernethy's talent, and it is also the reason why he is valued by Grindelwald. Grindelwald valued Abernethy's talent, but was also very dissatisfied with his character. Perhaps because he had stayed at the magical society for a long time, Abernethy became one of those old fools who were just messing around. When things happen, you can delay them as long as you can, fool around as long as you can, bully the subordinates and flatter the superiors, put on airs, use chicken feathers as arrows, look ugly and think beautiful. But Grindelwald discovered today that Abernethy had changed a lot. He began to learn to dress himself up. His greasy hair became refreshing, and his old-fashioned sloppy clothes were replaced by a clean 3-piece windbreaker suit. Only the top hat that he habitually lowered was slightly incongruous. These are still foreign objects. What really surprised Grindelwald was that he became more comfortable. He gradually became taciturn and became more serious about his work. This is good, it makes Grindelwald very satisfied. Followers become constantly better by following him, which can give Grindelwald an alternative sense of accomplishment. Is there any result? Grindelwald asked with concern. Abernethy shook his head, his eyes flashing with confusion. No. I have news. Grindelwald said softly. Abernethy looked at Grindelwald in surprise. He had indeed received Grindelwald's promise to help him find his family, but in fact he himself did not have much hope. Because someone once promised to help him find his family, but after 20 years of searching, there was still no news. We found the shipwreck that year. There were 47 survivors. The total crew members were 462 people. There are only 30 people alive today. Your family is among these 462 people. Minister of the 12. More than 400 people? Only 47 survived? Abernethy's voice trembled. Grindelwald patted him on the shoulder. To be honest, it is unlikely that your family is still alive. Abernethy's nostrils were shrinking and dilating. He lowered his head and spoke with an unprecedented firmness. I still have to find them, even if it's a name, a corpse, a tombstone. Furstenberg Square, French Ministry of Magic. Joseph, you really let me down. There are too many signs that Grindelwald and his henchmen are in Paris, but you and your Aurors have found nothing? French Minister of Magic Derek said. The Auror office was furious. The object of his anger was a black wizard. He looked a little haggard and was wearing an old woolen coat. French black wizard. Why is it unreasonable? Very reasonable. Obviously, what is used in the Muggle community is not suitable in the wizarding world. African wizards are also an indispensable part of the wizarding community. Sorry, Your Excellency Minister, our Aurors can easily detect the traces of the Wiccan party members, but we have never found Grindelwald. These people take to the streets with great arrogance because they have not committed any crime and there is no evidence. We cannot force arrest and interrogation. Yusuf Kama said with apology and grievance. Then what's their purpose? Why did these terrorists gather in Paris? Derek asked helplessly. You didn't even investigate this, did you? There is some gain, but I think the evidence is insufficient, so the Emperor has not given it to you yet. Yusuf Kama looked embarrassed. What's the gain? Brother, you are too cautious sometimes. You have to imagine what our situation is now. Grindelwald is in Paris, under our noses. At this time, what chain of evidence and sufficient evidence do you need? Drixus was overjoyed and asked quickly. We found out that Grindelwald's purpose in coming to Paris was to visit Mr. Aurelius Dumbledore. Joseph said without confidence. This thing sounds incredible, because this news was actually revealed by a member of the Wushu party during a routine interrogation. This sounds like an excuse, but they have no other evidence that Grindelwald has other purposes. Aurelius Dumbledore is the lobbyist, It's not quite accurate. He also visited me, but only as a matchmaking middleman. Maybe he received some benefits from Siren. Oh? That's it. I really don't know, otherwise I wouldn't have left him alone for a few months. It's a bit of a mistake. Derek didn't take it to heart. The French magic with Nicolema has been there since its establishment. There is no one with the most influential ministry of magic in the world. As the French Minister of Magic, it is no exaggeration to say that Derek is extremely powerful. Is Dumbledore awesome? Old Dumbledore can still give him some respect. He really doesn't care about a little Dumbledore who pops up out of nowhere. But now that Grindelwald has made a special trip to visit this little Dumbledore, Drixus has suddenly raised the priority of this gringo who didn't care much. Anything else? Yusuf shook his head. There is also the fact that Grindelwald is looking for a man named Credence, but that's all we know. Okay, I understand. Is Dumbledore still waiting for my reply? Maybe, because he hasn't left Paris, which means he hasn't given up yet. It's really hard for him, Mr. Yusuf. If you have seen him, please take the time to send me a message. I would like to invite him to have dinner with me tomorrow night, Derek said. With all due respect, Mr. Minister, the Siren rebels have been defeated. Do you still need to see him? Yusuf asked doubtfully, with a hint of uneasiness in his eyes. Who said anything about this? If Grindelwald wants to see him, then we have to fight for him. It's that simple. Okay, I'm going back first. Remember, step up the investigation. Okay, sir. Walk slowly. Yusuf Kama's expression changed immediately as he saw off the minister. Something wasn't quite right, and he threw out this news just to conceal other things he had investigated. It would be terrible if Aurelius and the minister were to meet. Yusuf Kama's expression changed drastically several times, and he hurriedly ran outside the Ministry of Magic. Almost at the same time, England, Hogwarts. A group of heavily armed and ready Aurors appeared outside the castle. Hogwarts prohibits disembodiment, so they can only go here and then walk into Hogwarts. If there was no anti-apparition, Torquil Travers would not mind bringing people directly to the classroom to give Dumbledore a blow. As Dumbledore's reputation increases, more and more wizards trust Dumbledore over the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry of Magic is always paying attention to these issues. To this end, they continue to take high-profile actions in field missions to demonstrate the prestige and power of the Ministry of Magic. This is something Travers is extremely passionate about. Even though he has long since left the Aurors and has become the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, the superior authority, Travers will still often lead teams to perform tasks. For this reason, the power of Theseus, the official director of the Auror office, has been reduced. Travers was accompanied by Theseus' commander and Leta Lestrange. Leta officially joined the ranks of Aurors not long ago and formed a husband and wife team with Theseus. On this trip, they faced the Great Dumbledore, and almost all the elites of the Legal Enforcement Department of the Ministry of Magic were dispatched. Of course, Dumbledore may not care. Wizards can't be decided by just a bunch of people. With a roar, a dozen Aurors swaggered through the hall and arrived at the classroom where Dumbledore was teaching. Along the way, many students saw them. Perhaps Dumbledore's education was too successful, or perhaps the old headmaster was too old to supervise, which led to many students in the school having a bad impression of the Ministry of Magic. Call friends to remind each other to pay attention to others. On the 4th floor of the castle, Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. Dumbledore, who was the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor at the time, was concentrating on teaching. Dangbolito is the most popular professor in the school, no one. On the one hand, there is the terrifying affinity between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. On the other hand, Dumbledore's lectures are very interesting, so interesting that they can attract anyone to indulge in them. A knowledgeable and charming teacher, what's not to love about a child? And today, he, Travers, is going to make these wizards understand their position at Hogwarts, Dumbledore's home ground. Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. Today is a practical class, which is the most popular class for every little wizard. These little monkeys can never restrain their restless hearts, dueling and confronting each other, using magic wands to perform magic, and trying mysterious and wonderful spells. These are far more interesting than boring theories. Even Dumbledore, who had a brilliant tongue and could make theory classes interesting, could not change the nature of children. What was going on was a mock duel. A chubby student confronted Dumbledore with a wand, and the other students formed a circle around them. Compared to the students who looked nervous and eager to try, Dumbledore was much more at ease. What were the 3 biggest mistakes you made last time? Dumbledore asked. The boy thought for a moment. I got an unexpected shock. Anything else? Hiss. I didn't dodge before breaking the spell. Very good, last one. The boy thought hard, he really couldn't remember. Other students couldn't help but snicker. Haha, he can't remember. Just when the boy was really wondering if he had missed something, the wand in Dumbledore's hand suddenly glowed with fluorescence. A gentle but irresistible force grabbed him directly, flew him backwards, and sat down on the sofa behind him. The boy looked at his naughty professor helplessly. He still didn't understand. He was being fooled. The most important one is that you haven't learned the first two thoroughly. Dumbledore couldn't help laughing, and the other students also laughed. A class was unfolding perfectly, but some people broke in. This is a school. You have no right. A young and beautiful teacher did not stop the intruding auror. She was interrupted rudely by Travers before she could even say anything. I am the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. I have the right to go wherever I want, as long as I want. This seemed to be a response to the lady just now, but his eyes were focused on Dumbledore. Facing a group of students, Travers couldn't refuse and said, "Get out." The students frowned and stared at them, but did not move. After just this brief encounter, they didn't like this intruder. Children are all obedient. Travers's authority was in the wrong place. This is a school. Apart from professors and principals, what they fear most is inviting parents. As for the director of the Legal Enforcement Department, who is this? I don't recognize him. Travers was embarrassed to find that none of the students moved, especially when he saw these students subconsciously looking at Dumbledore. Okay, kids, please follow Professor McGonagall out. Dumbledore's words were much more effective. The children followed the female professor and filed out. The boy who was Dumbledore's rival angrily warned Travers, "He is our best teacher." Thanks, Mike Reagan. Before Professor McGonagall left, he couldn't help but glance at Dumbledore worriedly. Give me a look of relief. Now, Dumbledore and a group of aurors were the only ones left in the classroom. Dumbledore watched several aurors disperse in the classroom, seemingly forming a double team, which made him understand that the intruder was not malicious. These aurors seemed to want to fight him. Dumbledore didn't take this to heart at all. In other words, Dumbledore had cultivated his character for many years and had a good temper. At least on the surface, he had a good temper. If it had been Aurelius or Grindelwald, he would have laughed at them. People, I don't know why they have a kind of self-confidence. People with higher status are often more likely to be self-confident. What on earth allowed them to produce a wizard who could compete with the likes of Dumbledore through heaps of numbers? If these aurors were just like Dumbledore, the Swiss encirclement and suppression operation more than a year ago would not have failed, and Grindelwald would not be able to cause such a big disturbance. The Ministry of Magic throughout Europe is helpless against Grindelwald. Why would Travers think that Dumbledore, the only one who can compete with Grindelwald, would be easy to deal with? It is a very simple truth, but politicians like Travers always turn a blind eye. Newt's commander is in Paris. Travers looked like he was in control, as if he knew everything. Dumbledore, an old riddler who knew the secrets of Tai Chi, said lightly, "Really? Stop pretending. I know clearly that you ordered him to go." Travers pressed forward step by step. Dumbledore leaned on the teaching desk and said with a smile, "Well, if you are lucky enough to teach him, you will know that Newt is not a person who is good at following orders." Travers smiled coldly and threw a small notebook to Dumbledore, who caught it with one hand. "Have you read The Prediction of Tycho Dodonus?" Travers stopped pestering Newt and talked about the book. "Well, many years ago." Dumbledore turned the pages of the book casually, closed it and put it aside without caring. Travers sings the prophecy. The man is cruelly exiled, the daughter is disappointed and despairing. Yes, I know. Dumbledore seemed to feel uncomfortable standing. He sat on the lectern and put his hands in his pockets, very leisurely. "Very well, then tell me, what does this prediction say?" Travers asked. "How do I know?" Dumbledore didn't answer, not to mention whether this poem was a valid prophecy made by the prophet Dodonus. Even if it was, there are various interpretations of the prophecy. You can only guess based on these few vague sentences. Things are undoubtedly inaccurate. Taking a step back, even if Dumbledore interpreted it correctly, why would he tell Travers? Grindelwald, a murderer, a criminal, escaped from England, Travers said to himself. If he is an exiled man, then who is the daughter? Dumbledore's expression changed and he looked at Travers gloomily. He had a premonition of the name Travers was going to say. Who died in pain and despair? And what was the starting point of Grindelwald's evil? That's enough. Travers. Dumbledore could not contain his anger. Ariana is Dumbledore's Achilles heel, a taboo he doesn't want to talk about. Travers also knew how to give up when it was good. He didn't dare to overly stimulate Dumbledore. Grindelwald appeared in New York. Newt went to New York. Grindelwald was in Paris. Newt went to Paris. Tell me, Dumbledore, how could it be such a coincidence? What do you want to say? You don't know. You are not in charge of all this. Not my business. You have built a very small international contact network, and you don't have to worry about it. No matter how long you spy on me and my friends, You will never find the slightest violation of your intentions, Travers. Dumbledore laughed, and he was helpless. Since he put himself in a cage, he must learn the ability to solve problems with something other than force. This sounds like a redundant step. But this is his choice, and he knows that he must do this, otherwise it will only bring more terrible consequences. Our goal is the same, to defeat Grindelwald. Dumbledore was serious in his words. They were on the same side, at least in the case of Grindelwald. However, they are always pursuing dominance, doubting, monitoring, and internal friction with each other. This will do nothing to crush Grindelwald's conspiracy. Seeing Travers' disapproving expression, Dumbledore felt helpless. However, I warn you that your political suppression and violence will only push his supporters into his arms. Travers suddenly turned cold. Dumbledore's warning sounded to him as malicious ridicule and sarcasm. At best, he was calling his teammate a pig, and at worst, it was an accusation against him. For a politician, this accusation is even more difficult to accept. I'm not interested in your warnings. Dumbledore felt helpless about this pig teammate. I didn't want to mention it at first, because I don't like you. Travers' voice suddenly became low, and he raised his eyes to look at Dumbledore, but among magicians, you are the only one who can rival him. Travers seemed to want to show off. He stepped closer and watched Dumbledore's every move. I want you to fight him. Dumbledore was speechless. He raised his eyelids, and the deep wrinkles on his forehead were the result of their complicated past. I cannot. He refused, but this seemed to be what Travers expected. Because of this, an illusory image appeared in midair. It was a pair of young people. Dumbledore's eyes were full of memories. It was them in the summer of 1899. Him, and Grindelwald. This illusion was seen by everyone present, and the Auror's disbelieving eyes jumped between the illusion and Dumbledore. Theseus stood up straight as if greatly frightened and looked at Dumbledore in shock. You and Grindelwald, Travers said with a confident expression on his face, were once as close as brothers. Dumbledore and Grindelwald were once as close as brothers? This is big news. Closer than brothers. Dumbledore stared blankly at the phantom in the sky. That was the past that he didn't want to think of, and it was also the most cherished memory in his life. The sweetest days ended with heartbreaking pain. To this day, Dumbledore can't think of another person who can do this to him. Looking for a close friend in the mountains and rivers. Grindelwald is his soulmate. The same talent, the same high ambition, the same pride and confidence. Will you fight him? Travers asked for the last time, almost speaking out word by word. This is an ultimatum. More than once, the Ministry of Magic asked Dumbledore to fight against Grindelwald, but he was blocked by those three words, I can't. Dumbledore's voice was soft but still firm. Damn it. I can't, again. Travers almost gritted his teeth. Do you really think you are the savior? Do you really think that only you can be the savior? Use this to blackmail and fight against the Ministry of Magic? Now that you have chosen which side you are on. Travers waved his wand, and a pair of metal bracelets appeared on Dumbledore's wrists. From now on, I want to know every spell you cast and who is monitoring you. It will be doubled. You are prohibited from teaching defense against the dark arts. Travers, completely heartbroken, turned away angrily. As he walked, he asked Theseus, where is Rita? Let's go to Paris right now. Theseus was silent and lowered his head. He was a little upset. This is what he told Newt to take sides. Everyone must choose to take sides. Dumbledore is no exception, and Newt is no exception. The no choice, he imagined, was just a delusion. With his head hanging down, Theseus walked out in silence. Theseus. Theseus. Dumbledore stopped him. Theseus raised his head subconsciously. Dumbledore looked at him seriously. Remember, if Grindelwald calls a meeting, don't stop it. Don't let Travers send you, if you still trust me. Theseus. Theseus. Travers shouted angrily outside the door, interrupting their conversation. Theseus nodded perfunctorily, turned and left. He also made a choice, the Ministry of Magic of Justice. Oops. Dumbledore looked at the metal bracelet on his hand, and the development of things was a bit beyond his expectation. He really didn't expect that the British Ministry of Magic, which was far away from the mainland, would take the lead in blowing the clarion call of attack. Attack? Yes. Everything in Travers today shows that. The Ministry of Magic is about to fall out. They no longer dwell on hard evidence, and they can no longer allow Umbra to grow. Maybe others can, but Travers can't. A hardliner like him, when Grindelwald didn't use coercive means, as the Ministry of Magic, he was forcefully ordering everyone in the team. There is no centrist allowed either to fight against Grindelwald or to help others, nothing else. This is not right. You can't do this. Dumbledore had a sullen face. This was forcing a large number of neutral forces to be driven in the direction of Grindelwald. As the Ministry of Magic and the Enforcer of Order, it is a constraint on everyone. If we continue to be tough at this time, it will only be counterproductive. What is order? It is the right of everyone to sacrifice part of their freedom in order to protect their freedom from being infringed.
As someone who works for the Ministry of Magic is constrained, such tough behavior will only make more people worry about whether their remaining freedom will be taken away at any time.
Instead of doing this, it is better to surrender to Grindelwald and follow Grindelwald's toughness, but in exchange for other freedoms. He had to do something. But the bracelet on his hand prevented him from acting rashly. He didn't want to irritate Travers anymore. The conflict between them would only benefit Grindelwald. It's a pity that Travers didn't understand his painstaking efforts. Power. It's really the sweetest poison in the world. Dumbledore closed his eyes tightly and sighed quietly. Albus, Professor McGonagall. Dumbledore knew who it was without turning around. Sunderland McGonagall, a gifted witch. He is also a professor who has taught at Hogwarts for decades, even earlier than Dumbledore. You don't look very good. I just heard Travers say that you are prohibited from teaching. Professor McGonagall asked. Ah, yes, that is terrible news. Dumbledore laughed. This is so stupid. Why does the Ministry of Magic interfere with teaching at Hogwarts? It's ridiculous to ban a professor from teaching. I'll go find the headmaster right now. Professor McGonagall was angry. 0. No need. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. Travers doesn't trust me, so let's take a break at this time. Dumbledore shook his head slightly. He gave in, and he gave in again. Dumbledore is not a weak person, but his repeated concessions in the face of magic are understandable to many people. This is called putting the overall situation first. Dumbledore hated the Ministry of Magic, and he had done so since he was a boy. The Muggles hurt their sister and made her an Obscurial, but the Ministry of Magic captured his father, leaving his family in ruins. For this reason alone, don't let Dumbledore have any favorable impression of the Ministry of Magic. But in the overall situation, Dumbledore chose to be patient. As a former close friend, no one knew Grindelwald better than Dumbledore. In order to stop his old friend, Dumbledore must not let the fire in the backyard start again. That's why. But it's a pity that the fallen flowers are deliberately flowing and the water is ruthless. Dumbledore's behavior of retreating for the sake of the overall situation was rewarded by the Ministry of Magic's push. He looked at the metal bracelet on his wrist. It was a very sophisticated alchemy tool. As someone who could talk happily with Nicolema, he also had considerable attainments in the field of alchemy. He couldn't untie this bracelet, at least not in a short while.
Professor McGonagall, can you go to Paris on my behalf?
3. It's a new day, the air is fresh. Wake up in the villa's soft Simmons bed feeling refreshed. It's much more comfortable than that hard bed. Aurelius stretched out. Meow. Meow, 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 Coco, Coco, Coco. There was a commotion in the corridor outside the door. Aurelius opened the door and said helplessly, "Okay, why are you bullying Coca?" Coca is the sweeping robot Aurelius bought yesterday. It is an alchemical product that looks like a cart, with a moving mechanical arm holding a broom and mop. It was invented by a French alchemist and the sales volume was very good. Many Ministry of Magic and Pure Blood nobles were willing to buy it for cleaning. You can see a lot of this kind of stuff in the magic world. What are you doing with all those fancy nonsense? There are house elves, and there are also things that have been cleaned up, and things that are obviously very simple have to be complicated to create this kind of nondescript alchemy robot. Although he couldn't stand it, Aurelius had no other choice. He couldn't always stay in the villa cleaning, so he pinched his nose and spent more than 300 galleons to buy one. This is a lot of money. Coca is the most valuable thing in the family. I didn't expect that since I released Zuowu yesterday, it would be like a eldest daughter colliding with a gangster, and her cap has been blocked. The broom that Kakana kept waving seemed to be an automatic cat teasing stick in his lips and eyes. Fortunately, Zuowu was just playful and the manufacturer of the Coca-Cola did not cut corners. Otherwise, the Coca-Cola would have been dismantled long ago. Many alchemical products have their own thoughts, but this is something similar to a program, not a real intelligent life. In the magical world, most items with intelligence are not good things, at least they are very dangerous black magic items. Meow. Seeing Aurelius wake up, Zuowu's eyes lit up, and he immediately stopped torturing Cocker, and instead pounced on him. Come and play with me. Sometimes I really envy these animals. They are simple-minded and just want to play when they are full of food. A little while, okay. You let me eat first and then clean up. Aurelius rubbed his big head and pinched his ears, and Zuowu purred comfortably. He really kissed you. Newt came over with an envious look. The villa was very big, with 6 or 7 rooms, and Newt was right next door to Aurelius. Woo. Zuowu looked at him warily and made a threatening whine. I really don't know what offended it. It never let me get close, Newt said helplessly. Aurelius also felt strange. He touched Zuowu and asked, why did he offend you? Meow. Meow. Zuowu called twice. Aurelius nodded and said to Newt, he said you are not a good person. You smell like a lot of magical animals, just like the person who caught it. Ah? You are too worried. Newt is a protector of magical animals, not a hunter of magical animals, Orly explained. Meow? Zundu, fake toot. Real. Seeing one person and one cat going back and forth, he couldn't help but said, you. Can you communicate with magical animals? Yes, most of them should be fine. Aurelius nodded without going too deep. At this stage, bestiality is only a variant of legilimency, far from becoming an independent spell. So Aurelius didn't want to talk more. That's great. Your ability is what I dream of. Newt looked at Aurelius with envy. I can only make a little judgment based on their behavior. If I can also talk to them, maybe my research can still be done. Go further. That's such a shame. Oh, wait a minute. Aurelius waved his hand and a mirror turned around. His expression changed and he said to Newt, someone called me, excuse me. Aurelius closed the door again and returned to the room. Newt didn't pay attention. His heart was entirely on Zuowu. He tried to get closer, after Aurelius explained to him. Ouch. Zuowu looked cute with his big, watery eyes. When Newt came within reach of him, his expression suddenly changed. The huge claws hooked Newt's collar and lifted him up directly. As his body was lifted up, Newt's heart was also lifted up. Queenie. Where are you? Aurelius looked at the background behind her in surprise. It was not her house, but a secluded path. She looked very bad, totally miserable. I'm in Paris. Queenie said softly, hiding her face. Where in Paris? Piazza Italia. Queenie sat helplessly on the roadside with her suitcase in hand, staring blankly at the couples passing by. The breeze was slightly cool, and Queenie wrapped herself in clothes. The wind was cool, and her heart felt even colder. It looks like you made an incredible decision. Aurelius walked out of the deep black flames. Facing a few muggles who seemed to have seen a ghost, Aurelius waved his wand, and they turned away with blank expressions. Tell me your method. Queenie stood up and looked at Aurelius with unprecedented seriousness. Have you really decided? Yes. I have decided. Queenie was a little anxious. Even if the sacrifice might be huge. I don't care, Queenie said impatiently. Well, love really makes people blind. Aurelius sighed, and he said, the method is very simple. What is it that prevents you from being together? Law of secrecy. Queenie looked at Aurelius in horror. She didn't expect Aurelius to do the same thing as Grindelwald. But Aurelius shook his head. No, the law of secrecy is implemented all over the world. Queenie said blankly. What is that? She was really confused, she had never thought about it. The education she received since she was a child is that the secrecy law prohibits contact with muggles, and wizards must keep the secrets of the magical world. But it wasn't until Aurelius mentioned it that she realized. Secrecy laws were enforced all over the world, but other countries did not completely prohibit contact between wizards and muggles. What is it? Aurelius looked at her without telling her the answer directly. People are always willing to believe what they want to believe, and people always believe in themselves more than others. He won't say it, he wants Queenie to tell it herself. Is the Magic Congress?